following podcast contains mature language and spoilers. Listener discretion is advised.
Marvel superheroes have arrived! Captain America,
Fantastic Four,
Iron Man,
Spider-Woman,
the God of
Hey everybody, welcome to the Marvel Superheroes Podcast. I'm Illegal Machine. With me is
Diabolu Frank.
and
Mr. Fixit.
we are here to talk about James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the latest installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and final installment of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, as far as we know.
Seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And see, this one's always
never say
been
never.
special for me as far as our podcast goes, because when we first started the podcast, this was the first of the movies we covered. When we read all the Annihilation books, we read the Warlock miniseries, we read the Drax the Destroyer miniseries. So a lot of those early days of our podcasting were based in the Cosmic section and the Guardian section. And I made a point of going back and re-listening to that material so I could kind of see the evolution of our podcasting through Guardians of the Galaxy specifically, and also the broad changes that have occurred with regard to cinema in general from when we started the podcast to 9 years later when we're covering this last installment.
Yeah, I could see that, with Guardians 1 being still like sort of the beginning of the first like Hail Mary the Marvel Cinematic Universe tried and just absolutely nailed it. And then Guardians 2 was sort of in the middle, and then now Guardians 3 sort of
Well, also, just for instance,
parabola.
we will often talk about our experience watching the movies. And like the first movie, all three of us got together. We saw it on opening night, 3D IMAX, got the posters. You know, it was like a big event, right? And with the second one, we were all split up. It was, if I recall correctly, Mr. Fixit and Fry Hole saw it in one theater. You and Mrs. Mac saw it in another theater. Me and my gal saw it in yet another theater. And then we were all getting together at probably Fixit's place, I'm guessing, to record on it, on our individual experiences. And of course, we were talking about, well, this theater was somewhat more packed, this theater was somewhat less packed and stuff. And then going into this third one, there's barely cinema anymore. You know, it's like, what were your theaters like?
I saw it. It was a matinee on Friday. It was like a real 3D, recliners, no IMAX, but it's still a very large screen with an incredible sound. You guys got to come down here and see a movie in this screen. The sound is amazing. So mine was sort of more of an old school, traditional, biggest screen they've got down here, loudest theater. Bought 2 tickets and watched it.
Vic?
How about you, Mr. Fixit?
We went Thursday around 9:30 to our local theater. I would say the theater was about half packed. When I went online to buy tickets, I mean, all of them, the majority of all the good seats were gone. If you were buying tickets, you were buying tickets to the seats on the wings. That's about it. We lucked out that we got some pretty decent seats. My only gripe was that they sold out of the special commemorative whatever
coin or
special
something?
cup or whatever.
Oh, it was a cup.
Yeah, ours was a giant. If you bought a large popcorn, it was a giant bucket of popcorn that looked like a trunk, and off to the side of it was a baby Groot using his hands to turn it into a bucket of popcorn.
What?
Yeah,
That sounds
and
awesome.
Those things were gone.
We just got the sort of embossed popcorn tin.
Oh no, ours, dude. There was I saw like 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, I was so pissed. I asked them, do y'all have any left? And he's like, no, we sold out this morning. Like, as soon as they started doing showings, I guess people were buying popcorns like crazy. They looked dope.
How much
I didn't
were
get
they?
a really good look at it, but I saw a couple of them. They looked really cool. But that's the same theater that I went with Fry Hole. And if you bought a large drink, it was inside the head of a Groot, like a large cup, but it was in the shape of Groot's head. It actually had like a top. I still have it to this day.
What theater did you go to? Was it an AMC?
No, the other one, Cinemark?
Yeah, Cinemark.
Yeah.
I think the different chains got different shit.
They always have different stuff. Because we've gone to AMC and they've always had the cups. This one, they tend to have like I said, they've had the tins before. I really wanted one of those Groot buckets though. Dude, that thing was cool.
Oh, dude, it looks awesome.
Oh, you saw it?
Holy shit. I'm going to send a picture to the fucking chat.
How much was it though?
They didn't have any, so I didn't ask.
Do they have it on the online thing you're looking at, Mac?
No, this is an eBay auction where they're asking $85 for it.
Oh,
Oh, shit.
They didn't pay no $85.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to figure out the best way to get a snapshot of this to send it to the chat. It's very vascular. It kind of looks like Freddy Krueger's face. Or his
Which one, the cup or the one with
dick.
the little Groot?
The Groot one. The Groot popcorn bucket.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
That is like very bizarre looking.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was baby. Yeah, I saw it. I was like, dude, I want one so
What's
bad.
that? Baby Groot? It's Guardians 3. It wouldn't be Baby Groot. It's weird.
Yeah, it's teenage Groot.
Hulked out Groot.
Yeah.
Yoked up.
But it was pretty dope looking.
Looks like something from Brian Yuzna's Society. It's way too fleshy.
It's very fleshy. It's vascular and fleshy, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
But that was my only gripe of the experience. Besides that, great sound, great picture. We did have one jackass that kept an overexcited fan. Like something would happen, he'd be like, "What?" out loud in the theater. That was about the only annoying thing.
Oh, that's weird.
So
Hold on, wait. I didn't say. So I say my theater was, hey, how full was our theater, woman? 3/4? Half? I thought it filled up. Okay. Our theater was pretty empty, but again, it was an 11:30 on Friday. So I think that was like the earliest showing of the day, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the first XD 3D of the day. So anyway. Okay, go ahead, Diablo guy.
So I have a bit of a journey, unfortunately.
Oh, Christ.
You always do.
I always do. So I wanted to see it as soon as I could. And I noticed that they were showing as early as 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, right? And we've had like some staffing issues where I work at, where we have basically too much staff and they've been loaning staff out to other organizations and such as a result. And so I was kind of hoping, well, maybe I'll get lucky and they won't need me in the afternoon. I'll go catch one of those showings. So I was keeping an eye on how full they were and where they were at and what kind they were and stuff. And after re-listening to all the podcasts, in particular, the first one we saw in 3D, I think once I finished the podcast, it turned out that we didn't see the second one that way. But then with this one, I'm like just trying to see, okay, what theaters are out there, in particular, like kind of like to check it in 3D, and I don't want to have a ton of people around me. And that really didn't seem to be a problem because most of the showings I checked out had almost nobody in them, or very few people. And so ultimately, I realized that if I didn't want to stay up late that night and catch like a 10 o'clock showing where I was more confident there'd be a lot of people, I wanted to try to get something as soon as I got out of work, essentially, right? Which also meant when I contacted Paquita, she isn't really interested in the MCU anymore anyway. She mostly would have gone for popcorn, but because I wanted to see one of those earlier showings, she wasn't prepared for that, and it was just like, okay, you just go do your thing. So I'm raced, and unfortunately, I had thought I was going to get out a little bit earlier, but people kept wanting to talk to me about stuff, and it's like, yeah, I kind of want to go, but all right, I understand you need to. We had a bad day Friday, and so everybody kind of was venting and stuff, so that prevented me from getting out as quickly as I could. But I shot down the freeway, I got to the theater, I was pulling up like right at the hour when it was supposed to start, but I'm still kind of harried and I want to get there as quickly as I can, and I haven't eaten anything, so I want to have a meal as well. So I get in and I'm at the concession stand and I'm going to get and pick up some awful like desiccated chicken strips and a drink and stuff, and then I look over the lady's shoulder and I see the commemorative item they have at my theater, and I sent you guys pictures of it. What it is, it's a rocket, a full-size rocket Raccoon, and then he has an embossed tin container, which you think that popcorn's going to come in. And I'd already seen online that it was $49.95 for this thing, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. But looking at it at the distance, like, man, that does look awful nice, though. And they didn't have a ton of them, and they took up a lot of space. So I'm like, let me just go ahead and get it to be on the safe side. And so what I don't realize is they're going to go ahead and give me a full-size bucket of popcorn with that. So I'm juggling empty drink cup, popcorn, rocket Raccoon, tin container, and I'm not realizing it's not really super stable. The tin thing is sort of mounted onto the rocket, and the rocket is substantial. This thing is a actual statue. You would buy this, like I've gotten the $50 statues, which I think are now like $60 or $65 statues that Diamond Comics offers, the plastic ones, and they're typically kind of hollow or at least partly hollow, so they're relatively lightweight. Rocket is filled in. It's a solid hunk of plastic and got some ounces on it. And then again, the tin cup is not mounted great. I'm trying to juggle all this stuff. I'm trying to get into the theater. I get in the theater and the movie's already started. I'm like, there's no way. It's like there should have been plenty of trailers for this. There's no way this thing could already be going because I'm in the theater at like 15 after. So I'm like, okay, something's got to be wrong. But I'm also juggling all this stuff and I need to get my drink. So I go back downstairs and with my cup, I get my drink. I realize that the ticket was still in the theater where I dumped everything off. Go back into the theater, find the ticket, come back out of the theater, or maybe I used my phone and realized that I was one showing over because they had the doors closed for the showing that was supposed to start, and they had the doors doors open for the showing that had already opened before then, which was confusing, and they're right next to each other. But I'd also realized that I was supposed to be seeing a 3D showing and this was a 2D showing. So then I'm going back and forth between the theaters trying to haul all the shit that I had from one theater to the next theater. When I go to grab for my Coke that I'd filled up, it burst on me and sent soda and ice all over the place. Just a whole fucking mess. And I'm the guy that you were talking about that's driving everybody else nuts in this particular screening. But I finally make it over to the other screening with most everything intact. I just gave up on the popcorn because normally what I do is I don't really like popcorn. My girlfriend loves popcorn, so I'd have just brought that to her. But I'm like, no, I'm abandoning it. I give up. I can't deal with all this shit. And finally get settled in, and they're still doing the previews. They're still showing like the Little Mermaid in 3D, all that kind of good shit. The problem though is, again, differences in experiences. Thankfully, there isn't a ton of people. I think in my showing there were maybe 10 people total, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Very, very spread out. And I made the same fucking mistake that I made with Multiverse of Madness. I'm literally probably in the exact same theater, way too far in the back, screens way up front. I'm seeing it in 3D, so what I'm seeing is like a little picture box in 3D and then everything else is not. Plus, for some reason, the theater next door, which was not 3D, had the lights completely turned out, where in my screening, they had like the walking lights throughout the entire time, which of course impacts on the 3D, and I'm way back, so I'm seeing all those lights before I can see the screen, so it's really fucking with my ability to appreciate the 3D. So I really can't judge whether the 3D was any good or not because of how fucking far back I was sitting. And I kept thinking what I should do is just move up further, because nobody else is going to show up probably, but I figure I've already disturbed enough theater goers with all my other shenanigans, and I'm just tired. And that's the other thing is, you remember we used to go to a movie theater, you'd go into a theater sometimes just for the AC, right? Just to be someplace cool and comfortable. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but certainly in the theaters I've been going to lately, they barely have AC going. It's consistently, warm, or at least, like mediocre, temperature, like high 70s, I would say, right?
Yeah, you used to see the people that would bring like blankets into the movie theater, right? Because it's so cold.
I bought a blanket at a movie theater for I think one of the Wonder Woman showings or something, because it was cold enough and they were selling throw blankets, in the theater. So we bought a blanket because it was cold.
Yeah, so I think we were taking jacket. We got in there. It was not cold at all. I think we felt the AC eventually kick on. Again, we were the first show.
Yeah.
So it is possible they were just kind of lagging starting the AC that day. But anyway, you're right.
I don't think so. I think that it's because I've had this happen too many times in many different showings. I think it's a cost-cutting measure. Maybe they have a number of people that have to be in the theater before they start running it. At no point did I feel AC kick in, and I'm all sweaty and gross from A, work, and B, all the juggling and shit. So it took me probably 20-30 minutes of just sitting watching the movie before I finally cooled down enough to where I was comfortable in my viewing experience. So yeah. But I did get that fucking rocket, and it is badass. And like I said, it's a statue. So for $50, I came out well ahead. The only thing that sucks, I realized once I finally got it home, that there's a mounting piece that they didn't fix, and that's why it was rambling around as much as it was. And I'm really lucky that it never popped completely off and probably broke the statue from just splitting in two because they didn't have it set up properly. But what was cool is the lady was like, now if you don't like this one, come back. If you're a collector and there's a chip or something, just come back and we'll trade you. I'm like, lady, I'm just happy with one. I'm not worried about it. Yeah, but it was very nice of her to offer though.
Wow, that's cool.
And there's
no, I was just looking at pictures of it. So you were an AMC. That's an AMC giveaway.
That's correct.
It looked great.
Oh yeah. It's really awesome. I look forward to showing you guys. And then the tin can is nice too, but there was supposed to be a sandwich container as well. It was only like $5. There was like a little plastic thing. They didn't have any at my screening at all though. And again, this is the first day, so I doubt they sold out. They might have just not gotten them. I don't know how good the distribution is these days. Or maybe, they just didn't make enough of them. I really don't think there's going to be a ton of these statues floating around there. So I'll have to check to see what that's going for you, but on eBay.
Well, they're already asking for $85 for the stupid bucket in my theater.
That's a cool bucket though.
The rocket's going pretty fucking expensive too. It's going pretty.
What are you seeing?
Just look at like they're 75, the first one I brought up, and there was another one for $100. They're not selling for this, guys. This is what they're listed for.
Right.
But yeah, I mean the preview for it, they're supposed to have popcorn in it, so that was cool. They gave it to you in a in its own deal.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to get it all greasy.
Paquita really wanted the 20-sided dice from the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and we didn't get to a theater soon enough to actually find one of those. We did get the dragon head though, where you pop the head open and it's got the popcorn in it. So that's nice. But she really wanted the die, and so I didn't want to take the chance of missing out on my rocket.
Dude, looking around, AMC did a light up Wakanda Forever popcorn bucket that is fucking awesome.
Oh, really?
This thing is awesome, dude. I'm dropping it in the chat, motherfuckers. This thing is cool as hell. Anyway, this is what did we get when we went to go see Guardians 1? Didn't we get like some sort of poster?
The poster.
Yeah, I still have them.
I don't know where mine is. I couldn't find mine.
I have no clue where mine's at.
Oh, did I give you mine?
Yeah, you're like, I don't want it. You want it? I'm like, sure. And I just tossed it in my where I keep all my comic book art.
Thank you, mystery solved. That's cool. I was just wondering. I was like, I desperately want my poster. It's like,
give it
no.
away as a a giveaway.
What's that?
I think I joked with you one time saying we should give it away as a giveaway.
Yeah, I think you did do that. That sounds familiar.
'Cause they are pretty cool looking.
Oh yeah, Uma
put
Chaka,
my-
Uma Chaka. Yeah,
I put my the 10 we got in ours.
that's cool.
Kind of
It's the awesome-
it's okay.
No. I like those, and they were doing those for a lot of the Marvel movies. I've got the Black Widow one and the Doctor Strange one, so I wouldn't mind having another one for the set. But it seems like they're inconsistent about where those are at, and I just didn't keep up with it.
Yeah, we've got a Love and Thunder and some other one, but this one comes with like a lid. We didn't get a lid with ours. Fucking assholes.
I might try to
I
go
don't know
back
what
to
we
my
would
theater
use
and
the
see if I
lid
can
for.
get a Groot bucket. I really want one of those.
Well, there's still time.
Only enough.
Just run by one of the theaters and see if you can grab one while they're still out there.
Yeah.
Them shits are all gone, dude. They don't
Oh, you
have
think?
those things.
Yeah.
No way. There's no way. They don't send a lot of these. I remember when we got the Love and Thunder, they were like, it was the display. And I was like, can I just have the display? And they're like, you want us to put popcorn in it? And I'm like, no, put it in a separate bucket. And they're like, oh yeah. Like, thanks a lot, movie employee. Jesus Christ.
So, like, by comparison, like, because with the Dragon Head, they did put the popcorn in the head. And, of course, then I had to go in there and clean out all the kernels and stuff and put it through the dishwasher and everything. So I was really happy that I had such a forward-thinking and aware cashier person, helping me with that stuff. Like, she was more conscientious than I was of the collector's value and condition and everything.
All right, I'll stop talking about the dumb shit. Let's talk about the movie.
Okay.
Let me see. I got the wiki up. Do we want to just keep going back to the wiki recaps?
Well, here's my thing. What I'd really
do you wanna
like,
do?
because this always happens, is we get involved in stuff, and then, like, Fixit loses energy, or we talk about too much stuff that he wanted to talk about, and he didn't get around to it. What I'd really like to do is just go straight to Fixit and just tell us what you thought about the movie, and then we can piece, play with it from there.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't get low energy, you ass. I'm just tired. It's a long day.
Exactly, but that's why I want to front load you. Come on in while you still got your what stamina you got left for the day.
Yeah, dump your big front load on us.
I would say I have no gripes about the movie. I enjoyed it. My only nitpick for the movie was, damn, they put in a lot of music all the time. Mm-hmm. It felt like it sometimes.
A little bit of a jukebox musical quality.
Yeah, but it was like sometimes the music didn't make sense. Like the song would come on and all of a sudden you would see their headset and they're actually listening to the song in the headset. I'm like, okay. It just, or like he's about to fight and he's turning on his little headset. And I was just like, that was my only nitpick. Besides that, I thought it was great. I liked the arc. I liked the jumping around, the time jump of Rocket, which of course this was Rocket's movie. I thought the High Evolutionary was great. I really don't. It was a nice send off for the series. I really thought they tied in together really well.
There was one of those videos where they pointed out the use of Beastie Boys' "Don't Sleep Till Brooklyn," and for me, I'm like, well, it's cool. They're doing the slow walk to a song that's suitable for that. But somebody pointed out, well, the song is about them touring and being exhausted and trying to get through this one last hump before they're back home in Brooklyn. And comparing that to where the Guardians were at that point in the movie, it's like, okay, that's actually a pretty good job on that. I didn't catch that. Okay, I get it now. That's good.
Oh, that is very cool.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Fixit. It would almost be like, he likes to do the one fancy song as it blends into the scene, or he's got the song that plays under the scene. This one, he would like lead in with a song and then play another song while like it was like there was like no Guardians background music. It was all like name songs like all the time. It kind of felt like the first Suicide Squad. What was the shitty one? Who did that one? Air? It was Air Suicide Squad where he's like, I'm supposed to put music here all the time because that's what James Gunn does. Yeah. In this case, it was just James Gunn doing it, but it was just music all the fucking time, like all the time. Well, like I almost feel like there's some 5-hour cut of this movie, and then they cut it down to whatever it is now, and everything they cut out didn't have music in it.
Well, and
like, oops.
I tried to get as much Guardian immersion as I could before this one, since should be the last one. And so I don't have a physical copy of Volume 2, but I do have Volume 1 because Paquita bought it when it came out. And I went ahead and went through the director's cut on that, the director's commentary, which I'd never done before. And he talks so much about how much he loves the score by Tyler Bates, who'd also worked on a bunch of the Zack Snyder movies. And that's probably how they met, because he did the score for Dawn of the Dead, the remake. And then he'd done both Snyder's movies and he'd done several of Gunn's movies as well. And he was really enamored with that score. And then on this movie, I see there's a different person doing the score, and I don't really remember a lot of score in this movie because so much of it is source. So maybe in the absence of Tyler Bates, he just started pumping as much jukebox stuff as he could in there to make up for the maybe he didn't like the score that they provided to him, basically.
I really do like each of them have their own theme songs or their theme music, and I've always liked the Guardian, that what's it, the you know which part I'm talking about, right?
Orchestral score, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was surprised that I think they only did ones that I can remember.
Yeah, there was one like real obvious time they did it. It's not popping in my head when it was, but I was like, oh, there's the Guardians theme. And then I don't think we ever heard it again.
And what did you think, Frank?
Well, I figure now that we've gotten your part, the core of your thoughts on the movie, we're going to go back on the rails with Mac, and Mac can guide us.
Oh dear, I've scrolled somewhere where I shouldn't be. I went to go look at the soundtrack. Fuck my shit up. Okay. At any point as I read this, you guys just, if there's like, hey, I like that scene, I want to talk about that more, just let me know. All right. The Guardians of the Galaxy have established their headquarters at the rebuilt Nowhere. Late one night, they're attacked by Adam Warlock, a sovereign created by their high priestess Aisha.
Okay, I'm actually going to sidetrack you immediately because I just
do it.
Immediately. Okay. So
Do it.
number one, this movie has the least soft landing of any of the Guardians movies. And you really do need to watch the Christmas special before you see Volume 3.
Yeah.
Totally. You are 100% right. If you don't have the Christmas special. But anyway.
Well, and so the thing is, too, we have not talked about the Christmas special. So Mr. Fixit and I watched that right around the time it came out over at his place. Mac, how did you see that one?
We just watched it home.
Okay.
It was
just
you and the
family?
I thought it was cute.
Like, do your boys watch the Guardians movies?
No. The Guardian stuff gets a little
Yeah.
They haven't really started watching MCU movies yet. They'll catch one at like a relative's house that's playing on TNT or some shit. But we haven't like sat them down and let them start watching MCU movies yet. We plan to fairly soon, but they are still PG-13. And then the further you get into the MCU, the harder PG-13 they get.
Mm-hmm. Well, you probably saw there's a kerfuffle because apparently a bunch of parents are mad that this movie got too dark for their youngins. Because how old was your kid? 7? What's the rating? PG-13. Well,
what the fuck were they doing in there?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
totally.
But even the Christmas special was a little like the cool teen Christmas special as opposed to something for the kitties.
Yeah, so I had planned. I was like, you know what? They could probably watch the Christmas special, and then we were up one night and like, let's just watch it. And I think we watched it. And I was immediately like, oh, this is good. They should not be watching this. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was definitely I intended to show them it, and then didn't, and then felt okay about it. So
yeah, and of course, it was in the Christmas special that they established that they've bought Nowhere and they've turned it into their base, and that's where they're living, which I think was not mentioned in any of the Avengers stuff. That must have happened after the fact. And I don't know if this happened while it was Rocket and Nebula that were essentially the Guardians and the rest of them were dusted, or if it was after they got back together again. But they bought Nowhere. They're rebuilding a sort of society there. I don't know who all is populating the place besides the people who are already in there, but it seemed like they had an influx of people there as well. Like they had the broker guy from the first movie now living on Nowhere, for instance. We established that movie that Mantis is Star-Lord's sister, and the whole thing is about trying to get him a Christmas present to make up for how his Christmases were ruined by his surrogate father. And so it's that whole side adventure with Drax and Mantis trying to kidnap Kevin Bacon to make for a better Christmas, which I didn't realize until after I rewatched everything. Kevin Bacon, I know you have the dance off at the end of the first movie, but they reference Kevin Bacon pretty much throughout the movie series, so that was more of a payoff than I realized. And he even has a tiny cameo in the Volume 3 as well, so he's threaded all throughout this stuff. And apparently he's a close buddy with James Gunn, and I think that one of his band's songs was actually in the very first Guardians, or at least the second one. So there's a lot of stuff there that I wasn't aware of until I did that deep dive. I was like, oh, this is all kind of connected. But yeah, knowing those connections and knowing where the Guardians are now, the introducing of Cosmo, the dog, is in the Christmas special. There's just so much stuff that's set up there that like you better, they're not going to, they do give you some recapping as the movie progresses, but the movie starts pretty hard. You really would benefit from having watched the show first. So I hope that Disney's international penetration is out there helping these people to not be, slamming up against the continuity in this very first part of the movie.
But I will say, if you didn't watch it, you can piece together what's happened.
Yeah.
You know about Nowhere. The Guardians had been there in the prior movies. Now they're there and they've got a base there. You don't need to it's not some mental gymnastics. You're going, how are they on this place? Oh, no, they just, obviously it got rebuilt. Now they got a base there.
Yeah, but it does kind of kick you out of the movie if you don't know, like, wait, Mantis is his sister? What? There's some stuff in there where you're like...
But if you watch Guardians 2, you can figure that out pretty easily. You can figure it out. Like, he essentially created Mantis. He's the dad of... that's... Again, you don't need Ancestry.com to fucking figure this shit out. But like, oh, yeah, I guess they are kind of brother and sister because Ego created them both, right? Ta-da! Moving on. Like, it's not... It's nice to have the added layer of context, but it's not a complete deal breaker.
Fair.
And Cosmo popped up in one of the other movies, too.
Well, and they had a different voice.
He's released with Howard.
What's that?
Exactly.
What was that?
He was released with Howard. Cosmo. She was released with Howard in the first movie.
Yeah.
Right, true. true. They had a different voice in the Christmas special versus the movie, though, didn't they?
It could be. Don't know.
Probably.
Don't want to spend too much time on it.
Well, I don't
moving
like
on.
they really went hard on the Russian accent in the movie, where I think in the Christmas special it was just some random person talking.
Could have been. The Revenge of the Guardians of the Galaxy previous stealing her people. After Adam overpowers most of the Guardians and seriously injures Rocket, he's eventually injured by Nebula, although he's able to flee. The Guardians are unable to tend to Rocket's wounds due to a kill switch embedded in him, which they identified as being made by a company called Orgo Corp. They resolve to travel to the Orgosphere, Orgo Corp's headquarters, in hopes of finding an override code. As Rocket, anyone want to say anything there?
You really going to read the entire Wikipedia entry?
Oh, come on. It's a few. Well, no, I mean, it's a few paragraphs.
Okay. I'm just going to let you go through it, and we'll talk on the back end then.
Yeah, edit it then if you want to. As Rocket lands
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll just
and
for a
you're
little
cutting
bit.
me off. You're making it longer.
Yeah. So just because again, when I went into the wrong theater, this was the part they were showing. Like they were in the midst of the attack by Adam Warlock, and of course that's making me get lost. But also in particular, they were doing this stuff with the med packs, and for some reason they decided to do this thing where it's very washed out, like the lighting, the fluorescent lighting is really turned up, and so it looks weird. It almost looks like a soap opera or something. And I'm like, this is wrong. This looks weird, and it's really throwing me off. And it felt nice when I got the background on that in my own theater. I'm glad I wasn't disturbing people too late into the movie. But yeah, this was my part. This is the part where I was screwing up for other people.
All right, just wanted to say from that first paragraph, med packs are dumb. That is a dumb plot device. That is a total weird MacGuffin plot device. Where the fuck did you come up with this med pack? Now
we're gonna break Mantis's arm and then immediately put a med pack and click, and she's fine.
On it.
What the fuck?
Well, no, but even Adam was using a med pack back with the fucking Sovereign, and I'm like, are we serious? We just created this shit out of our really. I can't stand. Look, I know it's a comic book movie. I got no problem with comic book shit. Where have med packs been the whole time in the whole MCU? Right. This seems like an incredibly helpful invention that could have paid off. Could have saved fucking Tony Stark with a goddamn med pack.
Right. It's another one of those deals where it's like we like consequences. Can we actually have consequences in our story? Or you're going to make sure that everything has a magical solution.
So the whole movie is built around how do we get the med pack to work? And it's just like, what? Why do we have the med? Why couldn't it just be, Rocket's sick, we need to do surgery on him, we can't because of this? Like it could have been so simple. Instead, we have the stupid med pack. Really dumb. Not a huge fan of it. But didn't kill the movie for everything. But I just wanted to just get that off my chest. The med pack is fucking stupid. Anyway, Rocket lies unconscious. He recalls his past. As a baby raccoon, he was experimented on as a test by the high evolutionary scientists who sought to enhance all animal life forms into anthropomorphic species created to fill counter Earth. Rocket becomes friends with the high evolutionary's other test subjects: an otter named Lila, a walrus named Teefs, a rabbit named Floor. And high evolutionary was astounded by Rocket's ability to deduce the flaw in his anthropomorphization process. Though was also furious that Rocket could solve the problem that he could not. The high evolutionary perfected the process with Rocket's advice, but then informed Rocket that he and his friends would not be part of New Earth. Little context here. They're all doing this. All of his friends, Lila, Teef, Floor, they're all hopeful that they're suffering in these cages because once they finally get counter Earth set up, they're all going to get to go there. Twas a big plot point this little Wikipedia thing's kind of glossing over. Ordering Rocket's brain be extracted and the other test subjects be incinerated. Rocket attempts to escape with his friends, but the high evolutionary anticipates this, kills Lila. Enraged, Rocket mauls the high evolutionary for shooting 3 more guards, but Teefs and Floor were killed in chaos. Alone, Rocket stole a spaceship and fled counter Earth. In the present, the Guardians are assisted by the Ravagers and a reluctant Gamora in narrowly infiltrating Orgo Corp, which is a shell company owned by the High Evolutionary. They retrieve Rocket's file only to discover that the override code has been removed from it. The group speculates that Thiel, one of the High Evolutionary's advisors, has downloaded it into an external memory bank installed on his head. They deduce that this may be a trap. Of course it is. It's a face-off, but set out anyway against Gamora's wishes. They are followed by Aisha and Adam, who are ordered by the High Evolutionary to retrieve Rocket. Upon arriving on counter Earth, the team is helped by a family of bat-like humanoids. In tracing Thiel to the High Evolutionary ship, Drax and Mantis remain with Gamora. Rocket and Quill, Groot, and Nebula travel to the High Evolutionary ship. On the way, they observe the populace of counter Earth live imperfected lives. Nebula is forced to wait outside the High Evolutionary ship by his guards as Quill and Groot board it. Drax and an unwilling Mantis chase after Quill's group. Warpig, one of High Evolutionary's minions, attempts to capture Rocket and is thwarted by Gamora before Adam arrives, and angry it hurt his new pet Blur, kills it. While debating with the High Evolutionary about his civilization, Quill points out the imperfections of one of his creations, well aware that he saw, an octopus selling meth to something.
Yeah.
The High Evolutionary begins to initiate his planned destruction and recreation of counter Earth, which will kill all life on the planet. Adam rushes to save Aisha, but is unsuccessful as the High Evolutionary ship enters orbit. Quill and Groot leap off with Thiel in tow, safely gliding to the ground and retrieving the memory bank from him. Gamora arrives on the ship to rescue them, while Nebula, Mantis, and Drax board the High Evolutionary ship to rescue the now absent Quill and Groot. As Quill's group attempts to access the override code, Rocket flatlines and has a near-death experience where he's met by Lila, Teefs, and Floor. Lila tells him that his time has not yet come, as Quill uses the override code to disable the kill switch and save Rocket's life. Mantis, Nebula, and Drax come across hundreds of imprisoned anthropomorphic children. Children are not anthropomorphic, they are just children. On the High Evolutionary ship before being captured and placed in a chamber with monstrous obelisks, who we'll remember were from the opening of Guardians 2. Mantis is able to tame and befriend them, and the three escape the chamber before returning with Quill's group and overpowering the High Evolutionary's arm. Kraglin and Cosmo arrive with Nowhere. Nowhere, they can now pilot like a fucking ship. And Cosmo creates a telekinetic tunnel connecting Nowhere to the High Evolutionary ship so they can free the captured children. Adam attacks again, but is spared and saved from death by the Guardians. Rocket discovers imprisoned Earth animals on board the ship, including baby raccoons, forcing him to come to terms being a raccoon. He is attacked by a deranged High Evolutionary, but the rest of the Guardians arrive together. They subdue the High Evolutionary, leaving him to perish on his own ship. The Guardians rescue the remaining animals and lead them aboard Nowhere. Quill nearly dies crossing over to Nowhere, but is saved by Adam, who has had a change of heart. In the aftermath of the battle, Quill disbands the Guardians, bestowing the captaincy to Rocket before leaving for Earth to reunite with his grandfather. Mantis embarks on a journey on self-discovery with the Obelisks. Gamora reunites with the Ravengers. Nebula and Drax remain on Nowhere to raise the rescued children. Oh, and then there's a mid-credit scene where Groot, Rocket, Kraglin, Adam, and Phyla, one of the rescued children, and Blurt are the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Don't forget the second
I
one.
felt like I was in a theater.
Huh?
Felt like I was in the theater the whole time. Great job, Mac.
Don't forget about the second stinger where Star-Lord and his grandpa are sitting at the table reading a newspaper and talking about mowing the lawn.
If you look at the grandpa's newspaper, it talks about Kevin Bacon being abducted by aliens.
Yeah, tells all.
You tell all.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get them in the mix. Just like they made sure to get Nathan Fillion in the movie. They made sure to get Michael Rooker in the movie. You know, he made sure to check off all the boxes for a James Gunn feature.
Yeah.
All right, can I give some points throughout this real quick? Let me just scroll back through.
Sure.
Adam Warlock fucking sucks in this movie. He was just complete garbage.
I think that's the broad
Frank,
consensus.
Stop. Do not talk over. Everything Diabolu Frank said was going to happen with that character that I kept telling him to just chill and be patient. He was 100% right. The dude was a complete the guy they got to play him is a fucking complete clown. They made him just a complete turd of a character who does fuck all in the movie. We're talking about one of the most deep, complex characters in the Marvel comicdom in Earth 616, who is literally like a C-string prop in this movie. And it's like, did they just force Gunn to put Adam Warlock in this movie? Like, I'm completely, he was nothing. He was nada in this movie. And I don't care how much you like the movie. If anybody says, I really liked Adam Warlock, you're a fucking moron. Mr. Fixit, I apologize if you feel that way. The dude just did nothing in this movie. The main thing he did at the end was save Star-Lord, which was complete bullshit because Gamora should have fucking saved Star-Lord the way he saved her in that exact same situation in the first movie. And the fact that James Gunn, of all people, who is usually nails this kind of stuff, whiffed to give Adam Warlock some redemption. Why the fuck did he need redemption? The High Evolutionary blew his mom up in front of him. That should have turned him to the Guardian side. Fucking duh, right? Like, as soon as he saw he was willing to wipe out Counter Earth just because he was done with the experiment, that should have turned him against the High Evolutionary, united him with the Guardian. Not saving fucking Star-Lord. Anyway, they should have deleted him from the film. If he was not in the film at all, I don't think anybody would have missed it. The fact that he's the one that injures Rocket to begin with. They could have had a million other reasons Rocket gets hurt and started this that didn't involve Adam Warlock. So just saying that. The lead up to Warlock is just what a fucking wet, gross fart in this movie. Was just nothing. Anyway, you were about to say something, Diabolu Frank?
Actually, I want Fixit to chime in first.
No, I thought he played, since Thor wasn't in this movie, he played the dumb, blonde, goofy character. He seemed to be just like Thor, in my opinion. I could live it or take. That wasn't Adam Warlock from the comics. If you're saying right off the bat, this is not the comic. So I wasn't like, well, they unfairly portrayed Adam Warlock. I was just, it's James Gunn. He's going out. I don't want to say half in, half out, but it felt a little half in, half out. Like,
well, no, but that character. It's not like he just popped up.
He had no art. He was born corn. He was goofy. It almost felt like that should have been Thor.
Right, so don't let him off the fucking hook. He's the one who teased him in the last movie.
Yeah.
Nobody forced him to tease him. Maybe they did force him to tease him in the last movie and then forced him in the third movie. I guess that would make some sense. But no, you're right. They totally Taika Waititi Adam Warlock. And that is not a character that needs to be Taika Waititi. That is just, that ain't him. It doesn't need to be him. I just didn't understand the point of it. Why was he such a, they let him out of the cocoon too early. He's like a child and he's just bumbling around the movie. Like, why? He makes up so much shit in these movies. He could have made up anything else. There was really I just didn't see any reason. Well, anyway, it sucked. But I will say this, that didn't ruin the movie for me either, because he had he was nothing in the movie. Anytime he was on screen, it would just annoy the shit out of me, but he's really not in the movie a lot at all.
True.
If he was in the movie the entire time, it would have easily ruined the movie for me. He's just barely fucking in it, which again goes back to, I wonder if they got like hours of deleted Adam Warlock scene where even Gunn's like, oops, I fucked up. Like, whoops, shouldn't have gotten this dude. That was a mistake. In fact, I will say that right now. I guarantee you there are multiple Adam Warlock deleted scenes that did not make this movie. And I think the movie is better for them being deleted. Anyway, sorry.
I agree.
I started talking again.
No. But again, I didn't go in upset that, oh my God, this isn't my Adam Warlock. As soon as they started talking about he's a child, I was just like, I'm just going to let it slide. That was supposed to be Thor.
And then he befriends the fuzzy little creature. And it's just like, this is, it was hard to watch. Anytime he was on the screen, it was very hard to watch. And I say that as somebody going in, trying to be as positive as possible of the casting of the weird meme kid from whatever fucking show he's from. Because the dude he got jacked for the role. But I was having none of it. I do not, if they were teasing a Guardians 4, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see, I mean, I'd be in it for Rocket alone, but,
they're teasing it because at the end of the Stingers, Star-Lord shall return.
Star-Lord shall return. I mean, he's probably going to get a fucking Disney Plus joint or something.
Think so?
Anyway, go ahead. Diabolu Frank, go ahead.
So I've got a defense and I've got a condemnation. So the defense is, a lot of people liked how he was portrayed in terms of the raw power and the way he just like flying through space, kicking everybody's ass. People seem to like that. A lot of people see that as a good indication of how Gunn's going to handle Superman. Some people were saying that they should actually have this actor, Will Poulter, play Superman. And my problem is he just has resting dunce face. He just looks stupid. He projects stupidity, and I don't want that in my Superman, and I don't want it in my Adam Warlock. So, and it was funny too, because as you mentioned, he got so jacked, and it's kind of like when the guy got jacked for Eternals, and then you never get to see his body after he did all that work, right? At least they managed to give him some battle damage, so you got to see a little bit of the muscle at the very end of the movie, but it does some kind of a waste, because they could have done a fucking Ezra Miller and just have him run around in a rubber suit for most of this movie. He didn't need to do all that work for what we ended up seeing on the screen. Now, the defense I'm going to give is that, as you know, Warlock was one of the characters that I was, like one of the first comic book characters that I collected and had association with, and so I feel very passionately about Adam Warlock. And because of that, once I started getting access to comic shops, I actually went back and tried to buy some of his earlier appearances. I had, there was a two-parter in Thor where he's running around in essentially a loincloth trying to steal Sif from Thor and make her his wife because he thinks that's what he's supposed to do. He was kind of a dumb ox in most of his early appearances. He was a guy who kept getting into fights with people and misunderstanding how humanity works and all this kind of stuff. He didn't really become the Warlock we know until Roy Thomas and Gil Kane did a story in, I think it was Marvel Premiere or Marvel Spotlight. That's when they started kind of building him up. And a lot of this movie pulls from that High Evolutionary stuff, because initially he did work with the High Evolutionary. He was working on Counter Earth. You did have the Animen, and I really liked those were represented. They don't look the way they did in the comic books, but the basic premise is still there. And so as long as I put myself in the headspace that this is not so much Adam Warlock as him, the original incarnation of the character from Fantastic Four and Thor and I think Hulk comics as well, then I can get behind it, except that the casting is still a problem because this guy just looks like a dope. And so I'm going to need somebody else to play him in one of his evolutions, because one of the things they do in the comics is he forms a cocoon and he comes back out and he's got like basically a new incarnation. It's sort of like Doctor Who in that way. Might have been borrowed from Doctor Who, in fact. So it's another one of these instances where you could pretty well get away with recasting and it not being a problem. I also want to say that I'd mentioned that the character that, what's her face? Let me look at the name right quick. Elizabeth Debicki was playing from the leader of the Sovereign. She reminded me a lot of
Aisha?
her, or I don't remember what the name they gave her, like Aisha or something later on.
Yeah.
And so you got the two of them on screen for a little bit, and the relationship was completely different. It's mother-son instead of never quite being man-wife kind of thing, like they try to play off Adam and Eve kind of thing. And somehow I don't think they ever named her Eve, which would have been obvious. I liked that they did that because in the comics, it's Earth scientists who create him. Here, it's her as the Sovereign who creates him. The dynamic kind of works, although it's a little weird because the whole thing is he was the rebellious son who turned against the people who made him, which doesn't ever happen with the Sovereign unless you say it's sort of a downriver of high evolutionary helping to make him and then revolting against him. But I liked her performance. I liked this weird thing where she was so hoity-toity in the last movie and she's so broken down in this movie, and the one thing she's got is this weird relationship with her son. So I liked her, and I liked how she was portrayed in the movie. So she helped offset him being such a dunderhead, but I'm still not hyped about any more Warlock appearances unless they recast the role. But what I will say is they can build from here, because like Mr. Fixit mentioned, he is a dumbass when he first starts out in the comics anyway, so this could just be the first incarnation. We can do better, and I hope somebody else does.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Hey, no, I agree. I think Aisha, she was great in Guardians too. I loved the aesthetics. I loved her, everything about her, and I thought she was great in this movie too. She just wasn't in it a lot. She was in it even less than Adam Warlock was. Okay, so are we just talking about what we feel about the movie? Anything else from that recap you guys want to talk about?
No, well,
Anything,
I'm doing the same thing as you. I've got the Wikipedia up, so I'm basically trying to go step by step with that.
Okay.
So I know that Mr. Fixit, did you collect Rocket Raccoon when he was coming out, or did you go back and buy it after the fact?
No, I never collected
Yeah,
Rocket
the
Raccoon.
Mike Mignola miniseries, you never got that one?
No.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
think I collected a couple of them, but I never read
You
them.
didn't even get the trade?
No.
Okay, I could have sworn you had familiarity with the miniseries. Like, I bought Rocket Raccoon #1 off the stand in '86 or whatever it was. I think it was Bill Mantlo and Mike Mignola. And of course, the design sense of Mignola, he was in this weird place where he wasn't Mike Mignola yet. You could see him getting there, but he had these sort of like Art Adams things going on, and he had a really good inker on that one. I thought it was Wolf Portasio. I might be mistaken. But that was such a unique looking book. And one of the things that they were doing in that was this weird, like Burton-esque, although obviously this is pre-Burton, but this mingling of cutesy Disney type stuff with this sort of dark, creepy elements. Like you had these evil clowns, and you've got all the cybernetic animals and stuff. And I thought they did a really good job of portraying that in the flashback sequences. Now the circumstances are much different. I don't think that the High Evolutionary had anything to do with Rocket Raccoon, unless that was a later edition. But having that tied into the Animan from Counter-Earth was actually really clever, I thought. It was one of those things where you take two things that are kind of similar, you just make them connect, and they're supposed to connect, or they make sense to connect. I thought that was well done. I really like how they played around with the horrors of animal experimentation and vivisection and stuff. I liked, like, High Evolutionary's always had that element to him. He's the eugenics thing that he's doing and everything, the sense that he's going to make Earth better, he's going to improve upon it and look at the things that are wrong and do a better job, and in pursuit of that, go into some messed up Joseph Mengele type stuff. And again, I liked that obviously in the comics, the white person, in this movie, it's a black person, and by referencing the racism and referencing the assumption of superiority of one person over another in the experience of this being, although I think that he's supposed to be an alien, not necessarily an Earthling, but it plays really well in themes of, racism and evolution and, again, like literally evolution, playing around with stuff that I think a lot of people might have been uncomfortable with if it wasn't done in the way that it was done. I thought that the characters just worked really well in that context, and it did do a really fine job of balancing the Disney type stuff with the more fucked up, dark, Watership Down kind of qualities that you have in the original source material.
I got a question for you, Frank, because I figured you were going to Frank us on this one. Do the Beatles make a reference to Rocket Raccoon?
The name is taken from the Rocky Raccoon in the song. I think it's on the White Album. But the Ballad of Rocky Raccoon was one of their songs, and it's a Western in that. And Mantlo was supposedly influenced by that, presumably. I mean, what are the odds that Rocket Raccoon aren't related in some fashion? So yeah, it should be derived from the Beatles song. But the Beatles song itself isn't anything about raccoons. It's just the name of this cowboy in the story.
Yeah.
Rocky Raccoon checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible. Rocky had come equipped with a gun to shoot off the legs of his rival.
Well, I wanted to ask you that because I figured you would know some along the lines of that. So
Yeah, as a kid, I'd never heard that. I was not familiar. I only knew the Beatles stuff from the big singles. It wasn't until I was in my teens and my father started introducing me to the deeper Beatles catalog that I caught that connection. And then it's been confirmed since then. So I didn't know about it when I first was introduced to the character. But yeah, it's clearly the Beatles were an influence. And I always wondered if maybe the reason why they wouldn't call him Rocket Raccoon was because they were concerned about that. But obviously, they've moved past that now. And I'm really glad of all the Beatle drops that Gunn does, they didn't do the Beatles drop. Please. That would have been a little too on the nose, I think.
Al Gordon was the inker on that miniseries, by the way.
Excellent inker on Kevin Maguire on JLI. But yeah, I don't imagine he would have. I mean, he may have maybe made the animals cuter, but he wouldn't have given it that crisp, that level of detail in that. Because you notice, have you looked at the pages, how much different that looks from usual Mignola stuff?
Yeah, you're right. When you said it, it's got an Art Adams-ish quality. I agree, especially the furriness.
Yeah, and my girlfriend bought me a Kleenex box that has multiple Marvel characters on it, but I always tilt it to the Rocket Raccoon section that has that Mignola Gordon artwork. Looks really cool.
I gotta tell you, man, the animal autopsy stuff was pretty fucked up. Like I guess to go more, I think Tim Burton's already been referenced once in this podcast. It was very Nightmare Before Christmassy, right? The way they're kind of stitched and hacked together, and they're just these kind of abominations. I was really surprised it was that graphic, because I don't know, it's sort of you know what I mean? Like animals are different in movies. You treat animals a little different. Like the dog always survives in these movies. You know what I mean? Even no matter how cheesy it is, if there's a dog, that dog survives. Nobody wants to watch a dog get executed. I guess what is it? John Wick is the only movie where that's going to happen or whatever. But but then the whole rest of the movie is about revenge for the dog. Kind of like it. At least there's a yin to that yang. So I was really surprised they went as graphic with the experimentation, with the animal murder, even like the mental torture of them being locked in the cages and one day wanting to see the sky, and then when Lila dies, she finally sees the sky looking through the little like hatch in the ceiling. I mean, dude, that is some dark shit. I had a hard time watching some of that stuff. I mean, it was I don't know. And it seems to be very much the consensus. With also, by the way, look, if you ever want to see what a bunch of normies thought about, maybe not. If you go to Facebook comments on a sponsored ad for a movie, I decided to go down that rabbit hole, that raccoon hole. Most people seem to really like the movie in those comments. They all thought Adam Warlock sucked. Like everyone was like, why was he even in the movie? Like, I liked the movie, but why was this guy even in there? So that's another thing. It wasn't like a bunch of normies who were like, oh, I loved Adam Warlock. Nobody can figure it out. But anyway, so yeah, I thought the butchered animals and stuff was really, I mean, you kind of had a feeling they were going to go kind of there because that's Rocket's whole background. And then they've been hinting at it in all of these movies, where they'll have him with like suiting up and you can see the shit on his back and everything like that. But man, when they were like actually dissecting him and inserting the things, it was very, very graphic. And I was kind of surprised they went that far, especially in a Disney movie. I was surprised they went far in many respects in this movie with it being a Disney film, including the F-bomb. But man, they got really graphic with the animal torture. Nobody else seems to care on this call.
No, I was waiting to make sure Fixit wasn't going to jump in, and I was going to jump in.
I mean, I'll agree with you. I mean, I have some friends that saw the movie, and I won't lie. During those scenes, you could hear people, kind of, that pre-cry sniffles. I mean, because it was dark. Even that caught me off guard.
I mean, it's like if in Bambi, when Bambi's mom gets killed, they then follow her to the taxidermy, and you get to watch her get taxidermy and butchered, and they turn her into sausage. Like they don't go that far for a fucking reason. And this movie went there. We saw how the sausage was made, and it was pretty brutal. I mean, even like watching his scars heal throughout the movie, right? After they lobotomize him, and he's got his skull is shaved, and then time has progressed because now he's starting to grow hair out of his skull cap where they lobotomized him. Like, I mean, that is a detail that probably wasn't needed, but the fact that they did it, I mean, they just sold. I mean, obviously, in all these movies, he's a tortured soul, Rocket. In all these movies, that isn't something they just came up with. That is definitely an arc of these movies, and it even goes into Infinity War some with Thor, right? I mean, so it's not like, oh, now he's got this tortured background. No, they led up to it, but they just really drove it home in this one. So it'd be interesting to go back and watch the first two after watching this
Like I did. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I was always deeply affected by the scene in the first movie where Rocket and Drax are getting drunk and they start getting violent with each other. Rocket just kind of breaks down because everybody keeps calling him vermin and a rodent and all this kind of stuff, and he's wanting to shoot Drax in the face. And the pain that he expressed drunkenly, that resonated with me. Like that was real. That was very raw. And it was that moment that I started really like. I already had an affection for Rocket just based on the comics that I'd read as a kid. Because my brother had his first appearance, because I think his first appearance was in a magazine, but his first proper comics appearance in the Hulk issue, I think it was an Al Milgram where Hulk's holding up like the stunning character find of 1985 or whatever it was, and Rocket's in the pretty expensive book now. So I already liked Rocket just because of that nostalgia. But with that moment, it's like, wow, I'm really feeling this. And then in the second movie, where they get really into his psychology and the way he's always pushing people away and that bitterness that he can't get past, and the way that he's relating to Michael Rooker's character, help me out. Yondu, thank you. And him relating to Yondu stuff. So by Guardians Volume 2, Rocket was the character in all the Marvel the cinematic universe that I'm most related to. And he's consistently been one of my favorite MCU characters going from that point onward. I just relate to him and what he's been through. And then in this movie, one song that resonates with me is Alice Cooper's No More Mr. Nice Guy, where he talks about being such a sweet, sweet thing till they got a hold of me. And watching Rocket be this sweet, innocent kid and then go through what he goes through and then become such a bitter asshole. It's like, oh yeah, I feel that. I feel seen through Rocket, right? And especially when they kill Lila. And see, going into the movie, I was wondering if maybe Lila and the animals were going to be the end game, because that's the environment that he lives in. That's where he works out of in the miniseries and in his earliest appearances. I thought they might leave him in that place. But instead, of course, they go the vivisectionist and experimentation angle. So by the midpoint of the movie, you're pretty confident that these guys are all going to die horribly because they really telegraphed that, knowing that the audience is going to know that this is going to end badly and you're just waiting for the tragedy to happen. But when Rocket's just standing there, kind of half, bent over, just screaming, like completely oblivious to anything besides his own pain and the horror of what he's just experienced, definitely one of the most horrific moments in any Marvel movie. And then when he turns on the evolutionary and starts clawing at him, it's like, wow, we're definitely in horror movie territory here. They were in a Disney place, and then they far exceeded that and went to the Watership Down place, where there are going to be kids traumatized by this movie for sure.
Yeah, when he claws his face off, you're like, oh, that's why it's all stretched over later on, right? Like, but I mean, look, I think everybody's fucking cut that dude's face off. We were all rooting for him there.
Well, but what's funny too is, again, you kind of know, okay, well, that's what happened. That's why his face is a little weird. But I don't think anybody was expecting them to go as far with it as they ultimately go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
But I will say that whole scene was amazing when he breaks them out, and then there's the return of fire, and they all get killed. But even before that, that wasn't before. I think it was earlier in that scene where the High Evolutionary is like, he's almost like he's drunk, stumbling around like, where is he? Where is he? And to be like, how did you know it? How did you figure that out when we didn't figure it out? And he was just like fucking fuming, drunk, pissed off that this animal that he created perfected it. I mean, just that, all that stuff. Any flashback with the High Evolutionary and Rocket in this movie was I was edge of my seat. Like, didn't look down at my phone to see what time it was. Never. I was locked into every single one of those scenes. By far, the highlights of this movie were any flashback scene, or basically any High Evolutionary Rocket interaction was what this movie was about, in my opinion.
Well, and on social media too, there's a lot of people that are commending this movie as a dramatization of mental illness, and especially the sequence when Lila's been killed, the other animals are freaking out, Rocket screaming his head off, High Evolutionary seems to break down even further than he already was. That cacophony and that chaos was definitely familiar to people who have been around people with severe emotional problems, and the danger, that element of danger, that knowledge that things could go south with High Evolutionary at any second, that's familiar to a lot of people. A lot of people see themselves in that. So yeah, it was very real and very intense.
Oh my gosh. And then after Lila, when she's dying and Floor is like screaming something in the background over and over and over again, the whole scene was just outrageous. I mean, it was outrageous. I mean, like a really unforgettable scene. Anyway, I guess we can move on. It's weird to say the animal torture was the highlight of the movie. That's not what I'm trying to say. That's a weird kind of, but really the most engaging parts of the movie had to do with all that stuff, which is good because that's what this movie's about. So that it wasn't like some random scene stole the show. That's what this movie was about.
But I was glad that Marvel was able to go there with their movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
Because I hate when people are like, oh, they're all the same, they're cookie cutter. Twitter. They're so predictable. And I was like, no one saw this shit. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, this movie was. I mean, and that's the kind of what you got to give all these the Gunn movies. He has managed to shelter these three movies from really the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There, the Infinity Stone pops up in the first one and is sort of the MacGuffin of that first movie, but it's not like they're not force feeding. I don't know. A lot of the Infinity Gem chase takes place outside of that movie. That's not like a movie in the middle of the Infinity Stone chase. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it still felt like it's its own thing. And if you didn't know anything about Infinity Stones later on, or that there was a gauntlet being assembled, you really wouldn't care. Guardians 2, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't seen it in a little bit, although I've seen it several times. I don't remember any hard-hitting MCU storytelling being imposed in that movie. Am I wrong there? Is you know what I mean?
It was kind of just like Peter learning where he came from.
Yeah.
And how he was able to survive holding on to the Infinity Stone.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, right. But it doesn't have to go, I don't know. And in this movie, completely divorced of it. Thanos only mentioned a couple times because they're talking about Nebula's past and Gamora's past and stuff like that. But there is no, hey guys, we got to talk about what happened during the snap. We better, you know what I mean? There's none of that. They didn't put a couple fucking Eternals in it. Shang-Chi didn't pop up. Wong didn't pop through a sling ring hole for a second and then jump.
And yet there is some sling ring action.
Was there a sling ring? Oh, that's right. There was the shit.
I forgot his name. He's the one of the Ravagers.
Well, really, he's one of the classic Guardians of the Galaxy who they've portrayed as Ravagers in the movies. Now. Yeah, but yeah, one of the guys in the year 3000 Guardians of the Galaxy is a sorcerer and does have access to a sling ring and brings the Ravagers into the movie through those sling rings.
Right, but again,
in your face.
No. That's not in my face. That's not a I'm saying like they're not. That dude's only been in Guardians movies. Do you see what I'm saying? I was talking about Wong popping in, where you're trying to bring, Wong now is like the guy that's going to make appearances in all these movies. Fucking Julia Louis-Dreyfus wasn't somewhere. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do any of that shit in these movies. They kind of kept themselves. There weren't a bunch of Skrulls and Captain Marvel popping in, going just passing through the scene, guys, and they didn't do any of that stuff. These movies have, in my opinion, are far more kept to themselves.
They're very siloed.
There you go. Siloed's a word. So anyway, what do we think? Okay, so one thing James Gunn does in these movies, in all of his movies, he's good at making shit look weird. I felt this movie looked weird. He didn't let me down in this one. There was the Orgosphere that was basically like a giant living like
organism,
organic spaceship that had like flesh and hair follicles on it. They were having to cut through. All that stuff was really weird. They're in the very colorful like Beastie Boys style suits, space suits that have the cool little boosters on the back where they're able to try. Like I keep saying, I think Guardians 2 is the best looking Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, from the creature creation and the ships and the pure effects. This did not look like the Marvel cookie cutter special effects as much as they've all looked recently. Like this one looked more polished, where like James Gunn designed the creatures. Marvel didn't design them and say, James, you have to use this Orgosphere. Like I believe James Gunn designed that Orgosphere with his dudes, right? No, nothing, nobody.
I try to pause for Fixit before I jump in, because once I get started.
No, I'm just listening in. I mean,
why? You're on a podcast. Talk.
I agree with you. I mean, I did like the fact that he brought in like Nathan Phelan and gave him more to do in this movie, because he's one of my favorite actors. And so,
well, they kind of kept holding him back. I think they kept thinking he was going to get a more substantial role in the MCU, and they did tease him as being Wonder Man in the Volume 2 deleted scenes. And now they've cast another actor to play Wonder Man, so I think they're just like, well, we know the Gunn's leaving. There's a really good probability that he's never going to be back at Marvel again, and so they just finally gave Nathan Fillion something proper to do, since if Gunn's not there, Fillion's probably not going to be there either. So let's go ahead and give him an actual part this time.
Hey, I'm sick of Nathan Fillion. I've hardly seen any fucking thing with him. And that's great. Everybody loves this guy. I don't really give a shit. His character was dumb in this movie.
Well, you still haven't seen Firefly.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
It's really
I don't
good, though.
Fucking care.
Like, it's really good. I think you would actually like it.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Give him a fucking role in the MCU or shut the fuck up. Why does he keep getting cameo? I don't give a fuck if he's getting cameos. I don't give a shit.
I think the role of the movie was fun.
Places? Like, y'all two swap places.
No, I just don't. I don't care about. Again, they've been teasing this dude in all these fucking movies. Oh, I heard he's gonna be Wonder Man. We got to find a role for it. Do we? Okay, that's great. Okay, cool. We got him in there, and they got the whole, he takes his helmet off, whatever, and it's like, oh, we're supposed to be. There was no gasp in the fucking theater. Nobody knows who Nathan Fillion is. I'm sorry, nobody fucking knows who this guy is.
Multiple seasons of ABC's The Rookie says different, motherfucker.
I was about to say.
Nobody fucking knows who. There was no gasps or applause when he showed up on the screen. Is all I'm trying to say.
I mean, I did like, that was a cute scene where they're talking about how, they both have the boss's uncle working for them, and you just want to fucking do something something about it.
It was a cute running gag. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. No, it was fine. It was great. That was fine. I don't give a shit that it was Nathan Fillion. Oh, we got Fillion in this movie. Yay.
But to get back,
Nobody was doing fist pump.
I enjoyed it because, again, I think that Gunn will do a Marvel movie again, maybe one day. I don't think he's gone forever.
So weird, very, we're talking about Nathan Fillion, and you're just like,
Frank said earlier.
I think Gunn's coming back, Dave.
No, I mean, not anytime soon. It's just, he got to finish his trilogy. They're hinting at Star-Lord. Like, it just feels weird. Like, I used to make fun of Frank because he would talk about Marvel fatigue, and I think I'm there now too.
Dude, where are you going with this?
I'm just saying, this movie was kind of a nice closer for me, where I'm kind of like, we got to finish all the series that we started together. I really enjoyed this one, so I don't know.
You're content if Marvel doesn't come out with cool stuff. You don't feel like you need to follow it anymore. You're just going to follow what you really like. Yeah. And this thing that you really liked has come to an end, and you can close that door and then decide whether that's going to open another door later on.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. That's kind of how I guess I didn't better express myself on how I felt about the movie. I mean, the movie, it really felt like a goodbye. Like, when I was watching, I was thinking, like, you know what? I even told my wife that. I was like, you know what? I've watched this last movie. I'm pretty good now. Like, I don't feel like this, like the old days. It did make me sad that we didn't get to watch it again like we used to, but it didn't feel like, well, that's the end. It just felt like, the movie was good. I had fun with it. Rocket's story arc was great. Groot got to do cool, weird shit. I was thinking about it right now because when y'all were talking, man, you're right. That animal stuff really, I was thinking about it. It really did get me. It kind of got me now thinking about it. I was like, I got a little misty eyed. I was like, oh shit, I forgot that scene where Rocket's about to die and he sees all his friends and she's like, it's not time yet. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that almost got me when Lila's like, and I knew it was coming. I knew they weren't gonna kill Rocket, so I knew they were just building up to her saying,
oh, you thought? I didn't think they were gonna kill.
No, Rocket. I never thought they were gonna kill Rocket either. But they teased it out for a bit so that it'd have maximum impact when she's like, but not yet. And you knew it was coming. And even knowing, I think partly it's the anticipation of waiting for them to do that, and then they do it, and you're like, oh yeah, that hurts. Yeah. Oh yeah, I feel it now. So I did choke up a little bit during that particular moment when she puts his, like, when they're putting the med pack on his chest. No, sorry, when they're doing the CPR on him, when Star-Lord is doing the CPR, Star-Lord. And then in the afterlife, when Lila puts her hand on his chest in that same place, is like, oh, synchronicity. Yeah, that one got me.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude. So good. Contrast that to like the other, like, what was the scene in Captain Marvel where she's talking to the fucking Supreme Intelligence and then they start playing Nirvana, and I think that was supposed to be the ooh yeah, and it just was not at all. These movies, they try and give you that fist pump scene where it's just like holy shit, and then that's Rocket then wakes up and it's like hell yeah, we got Rocket back. It's like the opposite of that scene in Captain Marvel. Yeah, that fantastic. What do we think about the High Evolution?
It's going to get to. I do have complaints about the movie. I'm not entirely positive. I thought that the actor did a really good job. I do wish they'd allowed him a little bit more subtlety. I think that he was ordered to go as big as he did over and over again. And one issue I did have with this movie is it always felt like there was one extra scene that was redundant. Like, we got the point in scene A and in scene B, and they felt the need to add a scene C. And they did this multiple times with multiple elements of the movie where it's just like, we get it. Quit doing that. And they did that with the High Evolutionary, where they just kept bashing us over the head with his emotional ability and stuff like that. So I thought it was a good performance. I really like how he was visualized in the movie. I just feel like I wish he'd gotten a little bit more subtle stuff to do and a little bit less histrionic stuff to do.
My only gripe was I really wanted him to have the helmet, the purple mask helmet. There was
one issue too. One of the reviewers I watched, he pulled his High Evolutionary action figure off the shelf to talk about it. And High Evolutionary's colors are somewhat different. Sometimes he's a little bit more reddish. Sometimes he's a lighter purple or even a pink. And then here they go with that dark purple, and it's like, wait, didn't we just watch a movie with a black guy in a purple outfit be a megalomaniac? It's like, yeah, we kind of did, didn't we? So I think that might have been an issue.
I see your point. But the only time I think I was a little or I kind of lost with the characters when he would start yelling. He seemed to be yelling a lot more near the end.
Well, he becomes more and more. But if you contrast that in the beginning of the movie,
getting unhinged.
In the beginning of the movie, he's way more even keel the way he's talking to Rocket, and then he then slowly starts going off the deep end. And then when Rocket fixes his shit, that's part of what throws him off completely. And then the rest of the movie, after he has his face separated, reattached, he's now completely off the rails. I didn't have any problem with him going so over top. I thought it was awesome. I was
I didn't mind it. It would catch me off guard because I guess I didn't think about maybe he was losing it a little bit because his creation outthought, or because that was was the whole thing, right? Is he was upset that no one else could come up. Like they brought up a couple times that there was this race that could rebuild some kind of engine in 2 minutes, and he was upset because that wasn't great because they couldn't come up with the engine. They could only fix it because it was like muscle memory, and that was an insult because they couldn't survive that way.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that they do act like he's been obsessed with Rocket all this time, and it seems to me like he could have just found Rocket at any point in time, and it's like, well, where's he been for the last 2 movies? That's the only kind of a leap where it's like, if he would have thought if Rocket had disabled his own tracker at some point, and then how he's alive, then that would have, I think, made a little more sense. But it did just seem like he had a little GPS button where he could kind of find him.
They had a kill switch in him.
Right. I mean, he had a kill switch in him. Like, this movie had some problems that I guess we can talk about at some point. But that kind of thing. Okay, well, I'll just talk about him now. And it goes back to MedPack. MedPack fucking hated. This movie has no clue what outer space is. For them hammering so hard on it in the first one where Gamora's drifting and she's slowly freezing and dying, and the same thing happens to Yondu. In this one, bro, ships are just being ruptured left and right, and like dudes are flying through in like what were those fucking Dementors or whatever that the High Evolutionary released. I don't know what the fuck they were called, the Hellraisers or some shit. The fucking horde that he released on Nowhere and stuff. It was like going through their windshields, and it was like, okay, like, well, now they're exposed to space. Like, what has gone on here? And then in the end, it was the same kind of thing where they just have Cosmo create this like to kind of seal a tunnel, but the openings on both sides were already wide open, exposed to space. Like, I don't know, don't hammer it, so don't be so true to it in the way the characters die in space, and we're supposed to be like, oh no, it's a real threat because it kills characters, and then just not give a fuck about it the whole rest of the time. Like, it got a little silly. I don't feel like Gunn normally takes those kind of shortcuts, and in this one, he was just like, what the fuck ever. We got to make these things look badass. So just have them crash through. Just have the dog make a psychic tunnel. It's no big deal. I really felt there was some shortcuts taken on that kind of stuff. I don't know, shit like that kind of got on my nerves. And they did it all. The med pack again. I don't want to keep talking about med packs. Med packs got on my nerves. But the med pack like set the stage for where they would kind of continue to get the kill switch in Rocket that he could have just hit at any time. The code was in the dude's computer attached to his head, and they just were like, that guy's got a metal thing on his head. I bet all the code that we need is specifically stored in that guy's head. Let's just go get it. And it's just like, wow, that was quick. They sure figured that shit the fuck out. It was just, and then I was like, why? Why did they only take that code? Because they're trying to draw him in, I guess. Well, aren't there a million other ways they could have drawn him in that made a little more sense? I don't know. Just stuff like that there was a little too shortcutty stuff. I thought the whole first half of the movie was real rushed. Honestly, it's almost until they got to the Orgosphere in my brain, I was thinking this felt like they told AI to write a James Gunn movie where it was just like all the characters are just shouting at each other all the fucking time, and they're all like these huge caricatures of what they're supposed to be, where Nebula's just yelling. And even the way Nebula walks, she does that sort of sexy walk. Even the sexy walk was turned up to like 9 trillion when she would walk around.
Well, it's so hard to watch the first movie when these characters still had some sense of nuance and stuff, and like they seem to have, and now they're just complete cartoons for the most part. What's funny is rewatching the movies. I've always been really hard on Chris Pratt because you always picture him as being the dumbass who's dancing around and stuff. What got me is he actually has an arc over these movies, and really he's done being the dumbass by early in the second movie. Like, he does some dumbass stuff on occasion because he's a human being, but really for most of the movies, he's kind of like the dad of the group, and mostly when he's yelling at people, he's kind of right. And it's just like, don't do that. You're messing things up, because he knows that they're messing things up, and he's trying to correct them and guide them and stuff. And when I was watching the Christmas special, he very much had daddy energy there, and I was like, why is he so like that in this movie? And it wasn't until I went back and watched them all, it's like, no, this is his arc. And so he gets more subtle, and he gets more sophisticated in his characterization, where everybody else becomes absolute cartoon characters. Drax goes from this like kind of deep, dark, he's got this horrible backstory, and he's very literal, but he's not stupid. Where in this movie, they explicitly are telling you, no, he's stupid, and we laugh at him. So like watching the degradation of Drax specifically is like, you remember that Peacemaker was written to be Dave Bautista, and Bautista turned it down to go do Army of the Dead instead. And then from there, M. Night Shyamalan movies, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's weird because obviously Bautista's really stood up and to protect Gunn and make sure he got to stay the course on these movies and stuff. But he, of all the characters, probably has the worst arc and has the least to do as an actor. And basically he's playing the character that he's trying to make sure he doesn't play ever again anyplace else again. And Gunn's inflicted that upon him. And I think that's kind of a drag.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to also remember that part where they're they're going over their contract, and Rocket had Groot write it first, and then Rocket put an Amendment, and they talk about Drax being a serial killer, and I thought that's kind of strange. Like that just kind of came out because they're talking about like Groot from Planet X, Last of His Kind, Rocket, super genius wizard, Gamora, most dangerous woman in the world, and it comes out like Drax and like serial killer Drax. I'm like, did I hear that right? Like he's a serial killer?
Well, and also if you think about it, what's the name of the Nova Corps race?
Xandarians.
The Xandarians had just signed that peace accord with the Kree in the first movie, and therefore one assumes that if he's seen as a criminal by the Kree, then he would also be in their database like an Interpol kind of thing. And to the Kree, who he's running around killing as much as he possibly can, especially the ones that are the ultra-right guys that are working with Ronan, he would be a serial killer, really. He runs around killing as many Kree people as he could, so that's how they'd see it, I suppose.
Anyway, so back, I guess, I don't know if I finished my point.
Well, one more thing, though, going back to that, too.
Yeah, sure.
The elevator ride where they decide to tell you the entire story of Gamora, particularly since the second movie, as this giant exposition dump, and they're kind of hanging a lampshade on it by doing it in that particular circumstance, but also it's not good writing when you have that kind of ridiculous, basically reading the Wikipedia entry to us in the movie itself.
Yeah, well, and I didn't understand what they were doing in the movie with that either. And then Gamora is turned up to a fucking million too. Good, what a horrible character. I thought she was terrible in this movie. I couldn't stand her on the screen. She was just so. It's like they told her, "Hey, you're a bad Ravager now, so now you got to just be as horrible as possible." Where she's like now sloppy and like a terrible character. Where it's just like, well, she's still like the better of the two, the most deadliest woman in the universe. Instead, she's just like flopping around doing a bunch of stupid shit. She didn't need to be in this movie at all, in my opinion, because that whole arc didn't really get resolved. And then they started hinting like, why don't you go with her? And Drax sort of Star-Lord turns to Nebula and is like, I never noticed how black your eyes were. That was all very funny. And then I was like, you know what? That would make sense because she's very much turned into the mom of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then they never mention it again in the rest of the fucking movie. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was kind of, and that even made the trailers, and it never came back either. And I was like, well, that's another weird decision. But then I started thinking like, was it even Gunn's decision to kill Gamora? Probably not. And he's like, well, now I got to deal with this shit in my movie, and I don't even really want to. So I'm trying to wrestle with how much of this was, and again, I'm not trying to give Gunn a break for that. Figure fucking out. You know what I'm saying? You're a grown up. You've made tons of these fucking movies. Figure it out where it's not stupid and does some service to the characters you've been using all these years.
And I can give you a little bit of backstory on that, actually. The original plan was he was going to kill Gamora in Volume 2. She was the one who was supposed to die instead of Yondu. She was going to basically do exactly what you said. She was going to switch roles with Star-Lord, be the one who saves him by going out into space and dying. And basically Marvel came to him and said, wait, we have another thing we'd like to do with Gamora instead. Please don't kill her. And then he had to switch over to Yondu, and he felt really bad about that, apprehensive, because he's best friends with Rooker and he wants Rooker to be in all of his movies, so he didn't want to kill off his character. And the whole reason why he was going to kill Gamora was because Zoe Saldana had already said, I'm tired of this makeup. Her makeup took like 6 hours every day. She didn't want to keep doing that. Plus, it takes that long in part because she couldn't sit still, and people complained about that as well. So like it was one of those situations where both sides were like, can we get rid of Gamora? We don't want to do this anymore. But then Marvel stepped in and said, no, we have a better idea for what to do with Gamora. And of course, that was much better done. I thought that Rooker's death in 2 was so great, and Gamora's death in Infinity War was so great that everything worked out the way that it should have, but also you're stuck with this Gamora problem. And I was watching, I think, his pitch meeting where they were talking about how, Gamora, she's the daughter of Thanos, the sister of Nebula, she's trying to get the Infinity Stone, she's working with Ronan and betraying Ronan, so she's the star of the movie, right? And like, no, the white guy, and that's a problem these movies have always had, is that really it kind of should be Gamora's story, and it isn't, and then it should be Star-Lord's story, and it kind of is, but then this movie also makes a point of trying to say, no, it's actually Rocket's story all the time, which is total bullshit. There's no way these movies form the Rocket trilogy. He's just there, and yes, he evolves over it, but there's no way he's the star of the first movie. He's no way the star of all the movies. So it's kind of fucked up, and I think the problem is that James Gunn's just not great at writing female characters, and trying to treat Gamora and Nebula as interchangeable would be even more fucked up. So I'm kind of glad he just left that alone, because he's not great at writing women anyway. And they did make a point of asserting that Gamora is a different person who's had different circumstances. And one thing I was thinking about that with regards to that, and why Gamora would want nothing to do with Star-Lord besides just not wanting to walk down that same path, is if you think about it, one of the things she wants when she breaks away from Thanos and Ronan is she wants to stop them, and she wants to live the life she wants to live. And the fact is, ultimately, Star-Lord could not protect her. The Guardians were not enough to keep her alive, alive, and she dies, and she knows that she dies in their company. So ultimately she finds a group of people, the Ravagers, who are more capable, generally speaking more powerful, and like she finds a new surrogate family that can protect her. So it kind of makes sense that Gamora wouldn't want to go back with them, and they're a bunch of fucking people anyway. I think she imprinted upon them because that's the first people she met in the life that she had in the previous continuity, but I think looking at it objectively, it's the right call to not fall in with them a second time.
Totally. And in fact, if they would have had a 30-second scene where she says that, to just close that would have been great. To where she fucking tells Star-Lord, you got me killed. You killed me. I'm not taking that risk again. I got to see my own future. I ain't doing this shit again. I'm hanging out with the Ravagers. They protect me. That would have taken no time at all. And I think it would have closed that chapter very, very nicely. And it would have made perfect sense. The fact that you just said it will make me look at this third movie differently next time I see it, because that's perfectly put. They told her, we fucking got you killed. Hello. Well, why on earth would she then go fall in love with you again, you dummy? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I just thought that was either a thread that just sort of fizzled out that kind of, now again, it got teased and kind of in-gamey, and Gunn had nothing to do with that. So I get it, but then just kind of tie that up and put it somewhere else. The fact that she was, but I will just say, I didn't like her I didn't like the Ravager Gamora. I did not like as much as the other Gamoras I've seen in all these movies. And I didn't need her around. So I'm just pointing out.
They have that show on Disney Plus, which is about their women heroes. I think it's called something like M Factor or something. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's basically does a spotlight on all their female characters and how meaningful they were. And watching that with Saldana, I was glad I watched it because I really didn't have a good sense of who Zoe Saldana is. She doesn't have like a really big media presence. So like, I don't know who she is as a person before watching that. So that was nice. And I thought it was really cool because she's dropping references to being a person of mixed race. She doesn't really feel black. She doesn't feel Latino. And feels like she exists in a lot of different worlds. She mentions how like some of her influences when she was growing up were like, as far as there was such a lack of female action stars. She mentioned Sigourney Weaver, which like, yeah, that tracks. And then she mentions Whoopi Goldberg. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I had never thought about that. But yeah, she was one of the few people who were doing that action comedy as a female, and especially a female of color, before most anybody else was, and how she basically had to take roles that were written for white guys and get them to cast her based on her star power, that they were basically the biggest star they could get for this movie, even though it's not necessarily the movie you'd want to write for a female black actress. And she's talking about like she loved being a ninja. Like every Halloween she wanted to dress up as a ninja, and she got to do a lot of that ninja type stuff while she was Gamora. I like that she has a background in dance, and looking at how she moves as Gamora, she does have that sort of dancer quality, and really there's a whole bunch of people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that move like Black Widow, and it seemed like they're modeled after Black Widow's moves. And I like looking at the movies again. Gamora just doesn't move like Black Widow. She's got her own kind of thing going on there, and I thought that was really cool. But also, you could tell that this wasn't necessarily the type of movie that she wanted to do. I think she wanted to get it out a lot earlier than she did. She liked that a lot of people see her as a role model. She liked that a lot of women were inspired by Gamora and cosplayed at her, and she liked that impact the character had. But I don't know how much she actually liked playing the character, and I think she's going to be really relieved to be done with it at this point.
Well, she can move on to more, like authentic Shakespearean works like Avatar, Way of the Water, and Avatar, Way of the Earth, or whatever.
Right. It's like, I don't want to be in a bunch of paint, so I guess they're going to CGI you. At least you don't have to sit for that.
I roll my eyes a little bit at that. I mean, she's one of the more identifiable, memorable characters from all these multi-billion-dollar movies. Can we not act like we're too holier than thou for just a second? Especially when you jump straight to the Avatar fucking series after. Like, come on.
I was a little turned off by her because she I don't know, to me, she made it sound like, oh, I'm so done with this and I just want to move on to them. I'm like, you've done the Colombiana and Avatar and fucking one pirate that I know of that you've done. And I've tried.
She was in one of the Star Trek reboot movies.
Oh yeah, right. That's right. She was a horror. So I was just kind of like I don't know. I hate when actors come off a little bit, I don't want to say ungrateful, but like Robert Downey Jr. bowed out graciously. He was like, did it, done it. I set the bar. He bowed out, and it was like cool. He never bitched about it. He goes around, he puts on armor, or gives, he'll show up to charities dressed, as Tony Stark and shit. I think that's cool. I love the fact that he actors like that realize, hey, this character is really, when they imagine this character, they see me, and that's cool. And so he doesn't shun it or just kind of be an asshole about it. To me, she seemed a little bit to be about an ass about it.
I disagree. I think she just was done. Dave Bautista has said he's done. He's not playing Drax ever again, and I respect him for that.
But his thing is, he's like, I want to do more serious things, like, you know, at the cabin, knocking wood, whatever, and I want to do.
Come on.
And I salute him for that. I saw him in Blade Runner. I saw him in Blade Runner. He was good in Blade Runner. But dude, you're Bane. Like you're always gonna be the big guy. So I don't know.
Like, Dave Bautista. I don't know. This is a very complicated human being that I don't quite understand. Like, you think The Rock's like, that's it. After Scorpion King, I'm done. No, bro. He just keep paying me. I'll be the big dude. I'll barely put a shirt on and I'll jump off a fucking, what, am I jumping off a building now? Cool. Oh, it's an earthquake? That's fine. You want, like, why do we have to act like we're fucking, Robert De Niro doesn't act like Robert De Niro. He's still in Meet the fucking Fockers, okay?
Or that awful movie about the Italian dad and shit. That looks terrible.
Yeah.
No, dude. You want one? Al Pacino. He did Jack and Jill or whatever, the Adam Sandler movie that's supposed to be like one of the worst movies of all time. He wants to be in the Marvel universe. Like,
don't look at Samuel L. Jackson. To say that kind of shit about these movies steps right on the fucking face of somebody like Samuel L. Jackson, who will take any role and it becomes a joke. But guess what? Nobody goes around saying, "Oh, we can't get Sam Jackson for this role because he's one of those Marvel guys." Nobody does that shit.
Well, and I think you guys are looking at this the wrong way, though. I think that you
thou doth protest too much.
No, here's the difference. Okay, Al Pacino is Al Pacino. He's done. He became Al Pacino, and then he started taking checks. Same goes for Robert De Niro. I don't think Bautista is still recognized as a thespian. He wants to be an actor. He wants to be respected as an actor, and he knows that coming from wrestling, he's got a big hill to climb at this point. So he's trying his best to make sure he gets to do a wide variety of roles. He does not want to be The Rock. He has expressed contempt at that because The Rock isn't an actor. The Rock is a property.
The Rock.
You know? Yeah, exactly. And he just doesn't want that for himself. And he doesn't care that he's not going to get as much money. He doesn't care that he's not going to have his own sponsored energy drink and all that kind of shit.
Where he's like, I saw an interview where he's like, you know what? I want recognition from my fellow actors that I've made. And I'm like, bro, you make more money than those people. Like, what the fuck do you care?
But he wants to be a great actor, or at least he wants to be a good actor.
You're looking at the ant for validation, bro. You don't need that.
But he wants to be an actor, though. Let him be an actor. He's got his money.
Then go act. Yeah. Don't go on fucking Twitter and on Access Hollywood and talk a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
Go fucking act,
and that's why he's doing stuff like M. Night Shyamalan
movies.
movies, and why he's doing Blade Runner and stuff, because he's trying to branch out. I just give him a break. If they don't want to be superheroes anymore, don't make them be superheroes anymore.
That's fine, but you don't have to shit on it on the way out.
Yeah, exactly. Don't shit on the way out. You stick up for James Gunn.
I love Drax.
He isn't, though. He's saying he's grateful for these movies. He's grateful for the opportunities they've given him. He's just moving on now. That's all.
That's fine, I guess. That's okay. That's fine. I feel like even announcing your exit is a whole other thing too. That's fine. It's whatever. That's cool. Good. Hey, Dave Bautista, good for you, man. I will watch any movie you're in if it's not made by M. Night Shyamalan. I'll probably go see it. Oh, hey, that was a podcast killer right there. Thanks a lot, Dave Bautista, for hitting the brakes here on the whole deal here. Anyway, so yeah, to me the movie kind of had like this beginning. Everyone's overly bombastic AI turned up to 11 version of what a James Gunn movie would be. You hardly breathe for 1 second. It's like you said, how it almost feels like the Christmas special was the first 30 minutes of this movie, because it just starts. So Quill's puking drunk in a room, everybody's screaming at each other, and it's just like, oh, okay, I guess we're not gonna actually, they're not gonna glide in on like a little skirmish first to get us all back in the vibe.
We're not gonna do that where they picked a cool song as the intro, to their little adventure, like the last one with what is it, UFO? Where little Groot's jumping around and dancing. Wow.
ELO.
ELO. There we go.
And see, that's always been an issue for me, because that song's owned by Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I know you guys don't acknowledge. But that's one of the things that was interesting with this movie, is because it's the Zune and because he has the full spectrum of pre-2000 music. I like opening with Crete, and it fits so well with Rocket and where he's been at for most of these movies. It was kind of neat to see them kind of transfer the ownership of this movie over to Rocket from Star-Lord. And I like the deceptive marketing too, because of course they like to show you that shot of them carrying the fallen Star-Lord, and you think that's at the end of the movie, and then they show them on the goofy animal planet. You think that's the beginning of the movie. And it turns out, no, it's Star-Lord's a drunk, and that's the beginning of the movie. And they're going to go to Counter-Earth and meet the Animen, and it's like, oh shit, this is actually hardcore continuity shit, not just the goof, what they're using to start the movie. I like how they were able to trick us in that way, and I like that stuff like Counter-Earth is addressed in a movie with the High Evolutionary, which I was really not expecting. So I appreciated those misdirects. But I'm also really glad I watched the movie as soon as possible because, you watch on YouTube videos and they have the auto-loading ads and stuff, and they're already putting spoilery shit into the ads from over the weekend for Volume 3. So if I hadn't seen it like that Thursday, I'd already be setting myself up for seeing shit that I would not have expected, and part of the thrill for me is not knowing what to expect.
Yeah, no, that I get that fully, and I don't mind that it didn't open in a traditional Guardians way, but it was the harshness with how the movie opened. I didn't mind it opening with Creep, like with Rocket listening to it. I have no problem with that, but it was just something was not right. None of the humor I thought in the first half hour really landed. It was all kind of forced, screaming at each other humor, which is almost like awkward. I felt like I was like a guy at a party where the two hosts got into a little fight, and now there's like a weird vibe. And I mean, if you want to say it's intentional, that's fine. I don't know.
Well, just like as a for instance, you talked about the
James Gunn.
You talked about the recorder guy, which of course is taken from Cloud City from Empire Strikes Back. So they throw this guy off of a high place. They use his body to cushion their fall. The corpse is left in a body of water, and you see him pull out a pocket knife and slowly carve at this corpse. It's like, this is a little bit darker than the other movies. Like they could have softened that a little bit.
Or when they're in the Orgosphere, and there's the chick who's been giving the announcements over the thing, and they just fucking shoot her in the leg, and she just starts screaming while she's bleeding. Normally they hit people with like little tasers or whatever. They actually like fucking blew a hole in her leg. She's going screaming in the background. I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, so I don't know if this was the James Gunn rage quit movie where he was like, I think we've talked about before the other James Gunn movies where this is his. You could tell he's mad because he's doing this with the movie or whatever. But I don't know. This movie had a lot of kind of record scratch moments in it, and some of them were really good. That again, a lot of the animal stuff, and then some of them were like, why did he just cap that chick in the leg and she's just screaming in the background? Like, what was the point of that? Or drowning the dude with the metal thing on his head and then carving it out, and you like watch the bubbles from his mouth as he's drowned it underwater after they've rode him. Little things like that where it was a sadistic that just every now and then it was like, oh, that was a weird choice. Like that was sort of strange. And then of course the weird gory choices were capped off when the face flaps of the High Evolutionary start flapping, and then they expose his whole John Carpenter-esque face looking at them and talking to them and stuff, which I thought was extremely rad, though I don't know how appropriate it was for a Marvel movie. I thought it looked so great. I was just completely down for it. I had no problem with it. But that was just me because I like the gory side of it. He's waiting for you, Mr. Fixit. You want to talk about the High Evolutionary's face real quick, buddy?
That was gnarly, dude. Especially when they showed his lip and it's curled up a little bit.
Yeah.
When he's yelling.
Yeah.
I won't lie. I heard open gas when they showed his face.
I think I heard a couple too when they revealed his face. And
yeah,
then they started interacting with his face like that, and it was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, because I remember I really thought whenever they pulled off the mask, I was like, oh, now he's gonna have the purple armor, like a fucking Doom face. That's what I was waiting. Yeah. And they showed like his teeth and his lips torn off. Because I remember when they showed Rocket ripping at him, I'm thinking, with those little paws, like I thought he was gonna be all scratched up. So when they showed his face on the side, kind of like the flaps, I thought, oh, that's weird, but maybe it's like skin over the slash. And at one point they're gonna show like all these slash marks. But nah, dude, it looked like almost like he chewed on his face, dude. It looked like not to sound mean, but that lady, they had her face torn off by a chimpanzee. Yeah, anyway, I wasn't expecting that either. That really did catch me off guard as well. And I guess you could say it was a happy kind of. I mean, this movie definitely was pushing the Marvel limit, dropping the F-bomb,
which was just so stupid. Like, of all the things you could drop an F-bomb for, get in the fucking car, that was like such a waste of an opportunity there. I mean, I'm glad they didn't have like I'm one of the fucking Guardians, but also it's like you didn't need the fuck then. You wasted the opportunity to give a fuck on something that's barely even registers.
Well, but I know that it probably had to do with the use of the word. Like you couldn't use it angrily directed towards a villain, but if you're telling somebody to get in the fucking car, that's like an acceptable use of the word fuck. But if you're using it aggressively towards somebody before you fight them or something, that's a different use of the word fuck. They do this kind of stuff where they would negotiate over, well, what if we say we're the fucking Guardians, High Evolutionary? They'd be like, oh hell, no, you can't do that. Well, it's like, what if you say you fucked my face up? Well, you can't do that. Well, what if we just say get in the fucking car. And they're like, okay, you can have get in the fucking car, right?
We've
Like
all heard
that
that,
was
you
the
know,
negotiated
before.
fuck. That was the negotiated fuck that was allowed. I thought all the stuff with him driving fucking hilarious. That was all good. All the stuff on Counter Earth I thought was thumbs up. I liked all that. That was where the movie was like really going for me.
And see, for me, I thought that ran a little long and got a little shrill. I preferred all the stuff on the Organic Planet because, like you mentioned, as far as cool visuals, that was the closest they got to Volume 2. But they never get too close to Volume 2. But with the colored space suits, there's one of the alternate posters that use those suits. It looks really cool. I don't think that visually the movie is ever as strong as they are on that planet, and therefore you don't have as much stimulation. But also I wonder, like, why does encasing a bunch of weapons in wood prevent scanning of those weapons being detected before they go into the pyramid? Medpack, exactly. But I did really like the cyborg animals, like the evolved versions where they're something out of a dark video game. Those were pretty cool.
Well, you're talking about, that was the character's name was War Pig.
Yeah, and of course that's a cool reference too.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, another one on the Orgosphere was that they put them in those like mechanic. They're like, you got to wear these red mechanic suits and nobody will know. There was nobody else in the entire ship wearing those fucking suits. I thought there were going to be like a bunch of dudes in those suits and that's how they were going to blend in. They were the only ones wearing them. Again, little just like shit like that I don't feel like James Gunn normally fucks that kind of stuff up. But there was just lots of it throughout. Again, like you just said, the guns inside of Groot, even though they made a big deal about not allowing guns inside. What? A couple of them I usually am like, oh, oops, they fucked that up. But they just throughout this movie, they did little leaps like that kind of got on my nerves. So anyway, I'm going to talk about what I thought about this movie. I'm just going to jump to the end. Are we good here, guys? So yeah, I thought it started out weird. It did not feel like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the first, although they were playing lots of music. I think that we've all seen that just because you play named real licensed music, it doesn't necessarily make it a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Until they got to the Orgosphere, then I was like, okay, this is a Guardians movie. It's weird. They're on like a rescue mission thing, except I thought the whole code stuff was just really dumb and I didn't like it. Just like I didn't like the med pack stuff. I mentioned that earlier. Did you guys, you want me to talk about the med packs more? Anyway, but from there on, I was kind of down with the movie. Outside of the things that were getting on my nerves, Gamora kept getting on my nerves. The caricatures of them were getting on my nerves a little bit. Some of the like the Drax, what's her name? Holy shit, Palm. What's her
Mantis.
character?
Mantis.
Mantis. Jesus.
Well, and Mantis got really a lot in the Christmas special, and that carried over into this movie.
Yeah.
And like, I really liked Mantis in Volume 2, and I still liked her in both these projects, the subsequent ones, but I liked her better in Volume 2. She got Draxed.
Yeah, her and Drax in this movie are little like it doesn't hit like it hit a lot in Volume 2. They had some of the biggest laughs in that movie, and in this movie there was just something was off. I really have liked Chris Pratt in all these movies. Yes, Star-Lord is a dumb character, but Chris Pratt is really good as Star-Lord, as the character of Star-Lord, and I was afraid that he wasn't going to be in this movie a lot, and luckily he was. He's got some really good scenes in it. I thought the ending that sort of pulled everything together really, like, again, we were saying the knock on heaven's door, rocket about to die scene was fantastic. And then when Star-Lord just loses it and starts giving him CPR, that was loved all of that. The whole we're going to drive nowhere that I thought was much larger and is actually like a ship. Didn't make a lot of sense. He's like going to crash it in and then we're going to like just move people over like it's a big arc. Didn't really have to do all that stuff. Although I did like where they were like, he's not Drax the Destroyer, he's Drax the dad or whatever. I'm like, okay, finally we get to reference his backstory again, like because we'd completely forgot about Drax's backstory. I really like the High Evolutionary. Just lots of this movie I liked. This is solidly the worst of the three Guardians of the Galaxy movies for me, and I say that still saying I really enjoyed this movie, and honestly I would go watch it again next weekend, no problem. I have no problem seeing this movie again. I just really like the first two a lot, and I feel like especially the second one's a really polished movie. Like it is a full beginning, middle, end movie, whereas this one, again, it just starts so abruptly, and really, and again, it's the third movie of a trilogy, so yeah, it's gonna lean on the prior two movies, but it just doesn't feel as complete to me, but does definitely pull on heartstrings even more than Volume 2, and Volume 2 did a good job of that also. So that's what I thought about the movie. It still gets a thumbs up from me, but it's not the best of it. It's not as rewatchable only because of some of the content as the first one. It's not as funny as the first one, and to me me, the second one is just, you can go back and listen to our podcast on the second one if you would like, folks. The second one is one of my favorite Marvel movies. So,
Yeah, when you mentioned the music stuff, in the very first movie I said about how I had issues with the soundtrack because it was basically K-Tel's hits of the 70s. And to me, I felt it was really easy to just pick a bunch of songs that you liked from the 70s and that's your soundtrack, right? And for me, Volume 2 upped the game magnificently because you had a nice mix of hits, but a lot of it was lesser hits, lesser known stuff, more personal stuff. And the musical choices were so specific to scenes of that movie that I thought that was the most effective use of music in Volume 2. This one, I felt like we got too much into James Gunn's MP3s. Like, I don't feel like, it almost felt like, as my understanding is he cut this down from like a list of 180 potential songs at one point. And apparently, like Fixit was talking about, he just had too many songs more than he needed for the movie. And some of them worked well, and some of them were like really questionable. Like, when they had Space Hog in the meantime on the trailer, I was super happy, and I was glad that it got referenced in the movie itself. That's cool. Creep was well used. I really liked We Care a Lot because I thought it worked well within the context.
Yeah, it was good.
And it felt like it suited the Guardians of the Galaxy, so I really liked that. But like a lot of that stuff toward the end of the movie, it just felt like, okay, this is just stuff that James Gunn wants to stick into a movie, and I didn't get into that one as much. I've also seen people who are comparing disparagingly the big turnaround moments from the first two Avengers movies versus the corridor sequence in this movie. And I'm sorry, it's not even in the same league. I thought that it was cool. They got a good song. They've got some cool action, but I actually kind of checked out during that sequence in a way that I did not do during the Avengers movie. So I really don't like that comparison. And as far as
you're talking about the No Sleep Till Brooklyn
the hallway
corridor
fight,
fight scene where they're chopping up. I didn't really care for look, I'm a big Beastie Boys fan. I didn't really care for the No Sleep Till Brooklyn use. It didn't. I don't know. It felt weird because they started playing it and they like turned it down low and then pumped it back up for the fight. I don't know. I wasn't.
It helps to make up a little bit for using Intergalactic in the Marvels, but also you have grown to hate the entirety of License to Ill. So, and it obviously that's like, well, what's one of those songs you're definitely going to hear on the radio if the Beastie Boys song is playing? No Sleep Till Brooklyn. So.
I do not hate the entirety of that album. Do not put words in my mouth, sir. But I mean, it wasn't like they played Girls while he was, you know what I mean? No Sleep Till is a perfectly fine song. I like No Sleep Till Brooklyn. It's great. I liked that fight scene because one, I thought it took some interesting different angles. It was a different kind of fight scene from the other movie. I like the way it followed character to character was a lot tighter. And it was just extremely brutal. It was way more brutal than any of the other ones.
Well, and also they definitely used that sequence to highlight the 3D. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just I was more taken aback by how they were basically butchering those characters. I mean, they were butchering instead of just like a kick. Oh, I kicked a guy. They were like hacking them open, doing some like the stuff Groot was doing with his tentacles and stuff and everything. It was I was shocked that it was brutal.
My thing though is the scene where he does that. The original Groot in the first movie where he puts his limbs through all those guys and smashes them around and screams. More impactful than anything that happened in the one in Volume 3. You know, especially for when it's violent as this. You know, the other thing is when you're talking about Chris Pratt.
Oh, hey, also, wait. Sorry, can I just add another thing? Okay, Star-Lord can fly. He has fucking boosters. Like, why did Star-Lord make his shit worse now? He doesn't use a mask and he doesn't use the fucking boosters anymore. They're in fucking space. Another thing where I was just like, why is this?
Well, and the repeating of the imagery too. It's like, we've done this 2 movies already. We have to do it in the 3rd one as well.
Yeah, but they were putting Star-Lord in positions where it's like, damn, he's falling out of a thing or something. If he could fly, that would really. Oh wait, Star-Lord can fly. His whole fucking shit is he's got the mask, the blasters, and he's got a jetpack, and it's just gone for this whole movie. And anyway, it was just. But we had to put him in these situations, and we got to get rid of the jetpack. Otherwise, it's the cell phone where they could just call for help or whatever. Which was, I don't know. I felt that to be a bit annoying because he hasn't just been in 2 other movies. He's been in several, counting the Avengers movies, and he's got the same fucking powers on all of them. And in this one,
it's inconvenient.
He's just a fucking dude. Like, he didn't even use his ego powers at all.
Well, I think he lost those at the end of the 2nd movie, though.
Yeah, he probably did. But again, it just he's got nothing. Yeah. He's got nothing in this movie, and that just another thing where I'm like, that it doesn't jive with what you've already kind of established. It's another shortcut to make the situations they're supposed to be in be like, again, when he goes to die, the reason the way he saves Gamora is he puts his mask on her, right? I mean, isn't that what he fucking does? He's got a fucking mask. He forgot the mask. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, and I will say that I've definitely been in the worst Chris camp with regard to Chris Pratt, and just in terms of the full filmography, I still stand behind that.
He's the best Chris, by the way.
Absolutely not.
As Chris Evans continues to make some of the shittiest fucking movies I've ever seen. Dude is falling through the Chris rankings unbelievably.
Yeah. So I liked him much better watching all the movies and seeing his arc and seeing that he's the character as perceived based on stuff like him punching Thanos in Infinity War is more of an outlier than I was thinking. I thought he turns in a good performance, and also it's come out that he was quietly behind the scenes working to help James Gunn get his job back. He just wasn't out there saying, fuck you, Disney, I quit, like Bautista was. He was being a little bit more clever about it. So I actually did like Pratt more in these movies on the rewatch than I did the first time.
And he's Mario. Everybody loves Chris Pratt. He's great. Chris Evans can do Apple Plus movies that everybody hates. That's cool. Anyway, keep going. No, Mr. Fixit's talked about the movie. I've talked about the movie. You need to keep going. Keep talking about the movie.
No, I don't think we've gotten a summary from Fixit, so I'm waiting for that.
What do you mean a summary?
I thought we started off with
I guess so.
Yeah,
So you
pretty
nothing to add from you then?
No, I mean it was.
He's added little
I
things.
told you I did my little tangent in the middle where it was a nice send off for the series.
So how about this? Can you do a ranking? Can
What?
you do a ranking of the Guardians?
I guess I'd say the second one, the first one, and the third one. The third one is still not as good as the second.
Yeah, and Mac already said that, and I'm going to have to concur. I wanted to be as prepared for this as possible because, again, investment. So I tried to watch as much Guardians media as I could. They did not have the Lego movie available for streaming, so I couldn't watch that. At one point, I'd put the Disney XD Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon on in the background. I only got through an episode or two in the background, and apparently it came off of the Disney app for some stupid reason. So 3 seasons, 79 episodes, but what I saw of it was too kidified for me, and I just don't feel like these characters work kidified. So I would put that at the bottom of the stuff that I've been exposed to. After that, I did watch the sequences with the Guardians of Love and Thunder, and oh my god, those scenes were just nails on chalkboard. I can't wait to be tortured by the entire movie for the Thor countdown. The Guardians weren't as bad, but they just didn't have anything to do, and so of the movie appearances, Love and Thunder is at the very bottom for me. Next would be Endgame, because aside from Nebula and Rocket, they didn't really have a lot to do. Then Infinity War, they actually, this is the thing that I really want to talk about. There's been arguments about what's the best Marvel trilogy. Is it Iron Man? Is it Captain America? Is it Guardians? The argument I would make is that there aren't any Marvel trilogies. Maybe you could say Blade or something, but none of the Marvel movies have ever told an overarching 3-movie story. The problem with rewatching all the Guardians movies is that it's so important, the threat established of Thanos, how important he is to the lore of the first movie, to the motivations of Gamora, the motivations of Nebula, and that continues in the second movie. That's the movie where he actually comes on. He's played by Josh Brolin. He's actually talking and doing stuff. So, there's so much of a presence for Thanos, and then Gamora's a big part of that as well. And then all that shit happens in Infinity War. Like the conclusion of the story arc is Infinity War. We see the death of Gamora. We see the destruction of the Guardians. We see the altering of the timeline. We see the ultimate defeat of Thanos. And then we're coming back for this coda, essentially. This isn't the third part of a trilogy. This is a coda on James Gunn's involvement with the characters. It's a last look at them as a family of the same characters. And so it's really not a trilogy. So none of these movies are trilogies. You really have to look at Infinity War, and that's why I've got that ranked next. I probably that should be ranked ahead of the holiday special. I think that the Guardians are really important for Avengers Infinity War. In fact, I would argue that Avengers Infinity War isn't necessarily an Avengers movie because so much of it is about the Guardians and the Avengers and the solo characters. It really just is an event that features all these people that aren't actually Avengers, and Guardians are a huge part of that. Just like Rocket going off with and Groot growing off with Thor is such a big part of Endgame as well. That those are by extension just Marvel Universe movies, not really Avengers movies. And so I guess you put the holiday special, then Infinity War, then Guardians 3. The problem with Guardians 3 is it's just too fucking long. There's too many scenes that could be cut or trimmed. There's just too much. It's too gratuitous. They give Gunn too much lead.
How long?
220. So it's about what you'd expect from Marvel movies.
Not that long.
But most of the other ones are like 210. And also there's just so much more story and so much more impactful story in Volume 2 that it does a lot with its extra length. Where Guardians, part of what makes it a good movie is it's tight. You talked about it the first time when we recorded on it. It just moves. There's no slow parts. There's no fat on it. So 3 is definitely the worst of the Guardians movies. Then you've got the first one, which I liked much better the second time on second viewing because I could let go of them not being the comic book characters. I just accept them for the movie characters and enjoy the movie more for what it is than what I expected it to be. And of course, Volume 2 is number 1. I thought for sure I cried at Yondu's funeral at the first viewing, but apparently in the podcast, I just choked up. I definitely cried this time. That's just such an impactful sequence sequence. I think it's better than the death of Spock in Wrath of Khan. And a lot of it comes down to how the people are reacting to Yondu after we've already set up this guy's been completely dismissed from the Ravagers, that he's never going to be able to redeem himself. He's never going to be forgiven. The only people that are going to there to mourn for him are his closest family. We've seen him, all of his friends got killed, and all of his people that he lived with that weren't necessarily his friends, he himself had to kill, and then die saving his son. All this shit that he goes through in that movie, and then for them to know, hey, they're probably just going to shoot him out like a bit of trash, and instead all the Ravagers show up and give him the proper funeral and everything else. And especially when Sean Gunn starts to crack, it was already a great moment when he's doing I didn't mean to do a mutiny, they killed all my friends. But then when he sees that Yondu's getting his funeral and he starts to break, there's a lot of people that, especially as now the Gunn's running DC, there's a lot of people who want to compare Zack Snyder and James Gunn. And honestly, I think they have a lot more in common than they have different. I think the main thing is that James Gunn is able to take these characters that are just a bunch of pixels and make them human beings. And Snyder has this bad tendency to take human beings and make them sort of a collection of pixels, But in terms of being visual stylists and stuff, I think they actually have a lot more in common. It's funny to watch social media how many of the Snyder people are bitching because, like, you guys will never give Snyder credit, but I have to say that Guardians 3 is actually a really good movie, and I'm much more enthused about seeing his Superman now after seeing this. It's like, yeah, because they're really not that different. I just think that, honestly, Gunn is better at doing what Snyder tries to do in terms of story, although neither one of them are remotely subtle. Like, they're very much the subtext is for cowards crowd. They tell you the text right up front over and over again. This is about family. This is about being misfits and being distrusted and all this kind of shit. They have a lot in common, and I think all that dark shit in this movie resonates with the Snyder group, but also the fact that, especially watching the behind the scenes stuff for the first movie, Gunn so powered the visuals of these movies. Like, he was going in there and talking about what he wanted to be done. He was working closely with the effects guys, which is something that Favreau did on Iron Man 2 and worked so well. I think one of the reasons why Marvel wanted to hold on to him so badly, and everybody was working to get him back after the suits stupidly fired him and alienated him permanently, was because they realized they don't really have a lot of visionaries. It's like they were talking about Peyton Reed, and Peyton Reed really shit the bed on Quantumania, and it's like, did you not see the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie? Peyton Reed was always the fill-in guy because Edgar Wright got tired of Marvel's bullshit and quit. They shouldn't have had Peyton Reed on the second movie, much less the third movie, because all he is a shitty sitcom director guy who they keep trying to put in a position of doing these action movies, and he's just not suited for it. Gunn can do the humor. Gunn can do the pathos. Gunn can think in those bigger terms. He can create characters that live in your memories, but also he's there with the effects guys figuring out the pastel colors of Volume 2 and the weird bio stuff going on with this movie. He's there figuring that shit out. And you look at, like, say, somebody like Rocket, for instance. There's comparisons where, like, Snyder uses a lot of the same people in his movies, and Gunn uses the same people in his movies, and they're always bitching that he's got his wife in every movie, and he's got his brother in every movie. But, like, you took somebody like Rocket. Rocket is one of the most fantastic performances because if you think about it, you've got the little person that does the wide shots and probably contributes to how Rocket moves in the movies. You've got Sean Gunn, who's the person who's actually acting with the other actors. All these people, when they're doing these movies, they're acting to Sean Gunn. They're reacting to Sean Gunn. And his movements or also inform what the CGI animators do. But then you've also got Bradley Cooper going in there, and he's doing the lines, and he's the person that the audience knows as Rocket as opposed to Sean Gunn. And his facial expressions and his movements are also being used to create this character. There's so many people taking the best pieces of their work to make Rocket. There's no wonder that this is such a stunning creation. And also, Gunn talks a lot about the specific VFX house that does most of the work in his movies. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they were showing them Framestore is what they're called. And they do so much of the key VFX in his movies. And clearly his movies look a lot better than any of the other Marvel movies, or it's right up there with the best of the other Marvel movies. I think because he works closely with them and he does respect them, and apparently he gives them enough time to actually do good work, and it shows. I hope that as a writer, I worry about James Gunn doing Superman, but as a director, as somebody with a vision, I really think that he's going to do super cool stuff with Superman, and I'm really hoping he doesn't fuck it up, because I think that he's going to be able to bridge the Marvel people and the DC people, the Snyder people, and what should be Gunn people. You know, he's already got Gunn people who love him for Marvel. I think that the Gunn people are going to eventually get on, like the Snyder people are going to eventually get on board with Gunn as well. I'm really hopeful that DC can become what I always wanted to be under Gunn, and the quality of work done in the Guardians movies, even the lack of subtlety. DC is a bunch of parables and fairy tales and stuff anyway. DC doesn't need to be subtle, just maybe a little less Christ imagery and do something a little bit more inventive. Please don't tell me that, oh, we really need to make that movie where we're recreating the Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere triangle, but Batman's going to put a baby in Lois Lane. It's like, shut the fuck up. We don't need that shit. I think Gunn is better than that and can do more interesting things with that. I really do think that while they've been attacking him relentlessly because he's the person that's taking over and not letting the Snyderverse continue stuff, I really think he is going to be the path forward for DC. And I do think that Marvel's really losing something, because I think one of the reasons why they're setting up the legendary Star-Lord will return, I think they're probably trying to sneak him into the Avengers, because I think they realize that the roster really isn't getting people excited, and they're going to need a guy like Chris Pratt to get people's asses into the seats to watch Avengers. I think it's clear that there is superhero fatigue. I do think the Guardians is bucking that somewhat, because while it isn't doing gangbusters business, the fact that it's pulling numbers pretty much the same as Volume 2, years later, seeing how much the movie theaters have been emptied out, seeing how many movies that could have done well in previous years just have not been able to recover from the pandemic, and just a general disinterest in going to movie theaters anymore. I think it's doing surprisingly well, and I think this is a much narrower audience than a Superman movie could be. So hopefully he's going to be a path forward for, the medium and comic book adaptations, because I do worry we've had too much comic book stuff in recent years to the point where I'm tired, everybody's, I think, tired, but I want the good stuff to still be out there. I still want to have my favorite characters get proper representation on a proper budget, being treated with the respect they deserve, and just doing more good movies and less crap.
Good call on wondering if they're going to put Star-Lord in the Avengers. That would actually be a very good idea. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, but I'm like, okay, I think that's an excellent idea.
Because I thought they were hinting at Falcon when he was talking about cutting the yard and the other person watching it. Because I don't know. It just felt like they were alluding to something.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how people respond to the next Captain America movie, especially since it seems to kind of be a backdoor Hulk movie as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And clearly they're just using Cap to set up Thunderbolts as well. So it's like, it's weird how, I really want to see the movie. I'm really excited about all the people that they've got in there. But I don't see and then the Falcon's going to take over the Avengers. He maybe named Cap, but I don't think he's quite going to be the guy that Cap was for the Avengers. You're going to need somebody else that can maybe command more of a presence than the actor's capable of.
I will say, you mentioned Infinity War. I don't, obviously that's not a Guardians movie, so I didn't put it in my ranking because I don't do the mental gymnastics your fucking weird ass goes through. But I would put that ahead of Guardians 3. I love Infinity War. It is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and one of the reasons is because they are so good in it. The interaction with Thor and the Guardians is just fantastic. Where Chris Pratt's trying to do the are you mocking me? He's trying to talk like me, and all of it is hilarious, excellent. James Gunn would have couldn't write that better than the Russos did Infinity War, right? I'm not speaking out of turn.
My understanding is that he was an executive producer and that he helped them with dialogue, and I think he suggested the song they was using and everything else. And I want to stress, I don't think that Infinity War is a better movie overall than Guardians Volume 3. I think it's the portions featuring the Guardians aren't as strong because they're kind of the fuck ups who ruin everything in Infinity War, where the Guardians movie is usually about them overcoming being fuck ups and getting something done. In that movie, they're kind of the scapegoats. And so I think I lowered it a little bit as a result of that.
And I totally disagree. They're so great in that movie, and I think that's one of the better Groots. The teenage angsty won't get off his video games Groot is hilarious in that movie.
Groot definitely sucks in this movie. I liked a little bit there at the very end where they showing the full size Kirby Groot. But man, that's another thing too. Talk about a poison chalice. Nobody wants to see the Guardians as we see them at the end of this movie in anything else. No. It's sort of like how Age of Ultron ended? Yeah, Age of Ultron, where they had the new Avengers and immediately forgot those fuckers and moved on past them. You again scapegoated them by having them fuck things up in where was it, the Sudan? Where were they at the beginning of the Civil War?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, they fucking blew those guys off immediately, and Gunn is leaving us with a bunch of crappy people to be the Guardians. And if they do decide to continue on with these characters, please dump all those guys. I don't want to see Crag. I don't want to see shitty ass Adam Warlock on the team. Either get the guys we like back together again, or just leave them the fuck alone.
Right. So anyway, Rocket is great in Infinity War. Star-Lord's hilarious in Infinity War. Gamora is fantastic in Infinity War. It's one of my favorite Groots in Infinity War. So I definitely would put even the Guardians portions way ahead of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Still saying I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Okay, here's my final question, you guys, now that we've all given our opinions on the movie. Post-Endgame, is this the best post-Endgame Marvel movie? I'm not going to make you rank the post-Endgame Marvel movies. I'm just going to ask you, is this the best or not? not? And if not, what is? No, is Black Widow better? Multiverse of Madness? Definitely not Thor, right? I mean, the Spider-Man movie that we didn't even do a podcast on, right?
I'm waiting for him to jump in.
Why don't I don't know what you're asking.
What post Endgame? There have been we had Phase 4, okay, which for the most part was
by
not.
far this is the best one out of all of them.
You think so? You think it's by far better than Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah, as much as I enjoyed that one, this one had more of an emotional punch. It left me. I could go back and see this movie tonight or tomorrow, and I'd be okay. Madness would definitely come next, but after that, I'm a Black Widow too. Those three stand together, but I give this one just the edge a little bit more.
I know that the consensus, and I think they're even using this for the advertisements for the movie that I talked about that were more spoilery. There's a lot of people dubbing this the best Marvel movie since Endgame. I am much more hesitant than Fixit is on that front. There's stuff I like about it, and then there's stuff I didn't like about it. I'm not in a hurry to go watch it again. I thought that maybe, I want to see better 3D or see it on a bigger screen or something. So going into the movie, I thought maybe I'll go ahead and see it a second time. But so far, I've seen Guardians twice. I've seen Guardians Volume 2 twice. I've seen the Christmas special twice for the rankings. I'm just not in a hurry to see that second time with Volume 3 because it's just too long, and I wish it were a tighter movie. I wish it wasn't so flabby. And I wish that especially Drax and Mantis weren't just so obnoxious. Gamora too. Now, since you mentioned that, I did really like Cosmo. I thought she was cute. It was the daughter of Borat, by the way, that was doing her voice in the movie. And of course, the rocket stuff.
That's cool. Hey, the bad dog.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't give a shit.
You don't like it?
Let's get over the bad.
I liked it.
No, oh gosh, I liked it for a little bit the first time, but then it was almost like she was like, no, like begging him to call her. I liked it in the end where he finally says, "You're a good dog," but it was like, wow, we had to have like 5 scenes to pay that.
And again, that's part of the problem with the movie is it's constantly doing a little too much, going just a little too far. Do 2 beats, do 3 beats, don't do 5 beats, right? So whereas I remember really enjoying Black Widow, but I also, especially Yelena, I'm just so won over by Yelena and so enthused about the opportunity to see her hanging out with Kate Bishop and hopefully She-Hulk and having them all in the Avengers stuff. But also there's a lot of stuff I thought was kind of crappy about Black Widow as well, like Taskmaster, and even some of the Red Guardian stuff started to get on my nerves after a while. I really liked Multiverse of Madness, and it was much more of a Doctor Strange movie than the first one, and there was a lot of cool, interesting stuff in that movie, but also America Chavez could have been better, and there's a lot of flabby stuff in that one too. So I would hesitate to say that it's the best, but you started out with those 2 movies. Those are the 2 that are in competition, and I do think it's a competition, but I'd have to watch them all again to know for sure which one I would rank higher. They've all got good stuff, and they've all got bad stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it's dethroned. So for me, Black Widow and Doctor Strange, although everybody hates fucking Black Widow, that is now the new Iron Man 2, where people put Black Widow as like the worst Marvel movie.
Much. I don't get why it's so hated.
I will say, until Thor: Love and Thunder, and Thor: Love and Thunder made people forget about how much they hated Black Widow, which was, I guess, good. I don't get it. I've seen Black Widow 6 times, maybe. Like, I just, hey, you want to watch Black Widow? Sure, and we'll put it on, and it's just good. The special effects in Black Widow are truly awful. They're really, really bad. I think I said in the podcast, it helped that we watched it that one time in 3D, that final scene. But unless you're in 3D, it just made it better. It's actually, because there's like stuff flying by the screen. But like where Yelena's on top of that thing and she shoots and blows it up. That has become like the Scorpion King of the Marvel Cinematic Universe about how horrible that scene looks, and it does. It looks horrible.
Well, that gets back on the James Gunn trip where they even said one of the reasons why the person who directed Black Widow was the person is because she was willing to just let Marvel do the action stuff, and there was somebody that wanted to do the movie, but she was not willing to let Marvel do all the CGI without her being involved. Where definitely James Gunn would not allow that to happen in his movies. They never even tried to get him out of that side, and it shows because he made sure the quality was in this movie, and the director for that movie just didn't have the power or seemingly the interest to exert herself there, and it shows because it's lackluster in that regard.
Yeah, and I really like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I've only watched it maybe 3 times, 2 or 3 times, so it doesn't seem to have the rewatchability I thought that it was going to have. And its special effects at times are really dodgy too. But I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a blast. Thor: Love and Thunder, complete garbage. Eternals, complete garbage. Spider-Man: No Way Home, no way will I ever watch it again. Wakanda Forever is just a really okay movie, just like completely okay. And then this last Ant-Man movie is complete dog shit. So
yeah, it's funny. It's like, people were bagging on Black Widow, but then Love and Thunder happened, and then Quantumania happened. It's like
Quantumania.
It's a real
Not so
race to the
bad
bottom.
now.
Yeah. Well, actually, how about this? Quantumania versus Love and Thunder. Is Love and Thunder still the worst?
It's the worst. Yeah, it's still worse. Yeah, and it's not even as.
I agree.
Love and Thunder is like I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about it because you are eventually going to see it, and I don't want to oversell it because you're going to be like, "Hey guys, I gotta be honest with you, kind of liked Love and Thunder." But no, they're just both. They're just two nothing bullshits. Except one of them is really cringy because of all of the Taika Waititi shit in it. So,
Well, the Guardians stuff included the fucking screaming goats, and I was already tired of them at that point early in the movie. So,
yeah, I forgot about the screaming goats and Korg. Strap in, buddy. You're gonna love it. Yeah. So for me, I would still put it 3, but I don't know. It could at any point in time flip with any of those two. But I would say they're all pretty close. I'd say Black Widow, Guardians 3, and Doctor Strange are all really close for me. But if I had to pick a winner, it would not be Guardians 3 today. That could change on subsequent rewatchings. But everything else is way behind those guys. Anyway, is that it, guys? Hey, dun 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 dun. Bow.
we'll start out with Nuff Sayers, in part because I found a comment from February 22nd that I don't think WordPress ever alerted me to, and it's a fairly long one too, so I want to make sure to get that covered right up front. From King Size Comics, Giant Size Fun Podcast, which means it's from Kyle Benning. This was on episode 122, Conan Saga, 90 Marvelous Years of Robert E. Howard in Comics and Beyond. I'm getting caught up on old episodes and don't know how I missed this one right when it came out, but it was a great listen. I've never outgrown my Conan phase. I guess the longer I work in the civilized corporate world, the more I wish I could embrace my more barbaric days of being an athlete in a bunch of super violent sports. Robert E. Howard's quote, "Civilized men are more discourteous than savages because they know they can be impolite without having their skulls split," as a general thing, has never rung truer than it does today. Yeah, I'm a big believer that not enough people get slapped anymore. And yes, I say this knowing that there's probably a few people out there that would like to give me a little slap around too. Anyways, I also concur on the Solomon Kane movie. I really enjoyed that one. I picked that up on either DVD or Blu-ray from a local video rental place that has since gone belly up. I want to say I picked that up in 2013 or 2014, and it's been something I typically rewatch and enjoy every October. On the Conan front, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend the Kurt Busiek and Kerry Nord Conan run from Dark Horse. I think it's my favorite stuff Busiek has ever written. Kerry Nord's art is stunning. The published artwork is published from his pencils, with Dave Stewart doing watercolors over it. Awesome stuff, and my personal favorite adaptation of the Robert E. Howard classic stories. I'm interested to see what Titan will do with the Conan license. To date, I believe they've only solicited omnibus collections for the Bronze Age Marvel stuff, but it looks like they are going to do Conan as their free comic book day gold book entry. And yeah, I'm pretty confident I ordered that one. I get my stuff through mail order, and they only give me a limited selection of comics that I can get for free for FCBD. But I'm pretty sure the Conan was one of the ones I picked, especially because I like that artist they've got. I can't remember his name, but he looks very much like John Buscema, which for me is kind of... It's Barry Smith and John Buscema. Those are the archetypal Conans for me. Julia Raoul, Super Turbo, writes of Blade. Okay, my first intro to Blade was seeing him on a few episodes of the 94 animated series of Spider-Man, and I had a few odd issues of Night Stalkers, and I saw him in an issue of Morbius. I watched the first 2 Blade movies, and I was all in my teens, in the aught. And like all things, I got a hold of a phone book black and white collection of Tomb of Dracula, because I wanted to read the comics Blade had debuted from. I also like playing as Blade in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I usually have him in his Night Stalker's biker leather suit, but I haven't read all of the other Blade comics, but I remember him in Mighty Avengers. Ultimate Universe Blade and Morbius were definitely going full regular. Vampires that exist in that universe. To me, Blade is like a Ghost Rider character in the dark horror side of the 616. The third Blade movie to me just felt like Ryan Reynolds' tryout for Deadpool. It's funny seeing Triple H as a vampire. I still rewatch Blade 2 mostly for how Del Toro made the world Blade lives in more dangerous with the underground Warlock mutant vampires. The Blade movies did have sexy vampires, and it was nice to see Ron Perlman as a vampire heavy. Also vampire BDSM. I wish Del Toro could have directed Resident Evil movies instead of W.S. Anderson. I love the creature effects of Blade 2. Billy Hines wrote, "All that Blade talk, good fun. No mention of the Mignola designs on Blade 2. His designs were all I was there for. I watched 2, 1, 3. Came for Mignola, Guillermo del Toro, and stayed for Christopherson Snipes." And Billy offers 4 4-ish pages of artwork by Mignola of design work for Blade 2. I'll embed that tweet into the blog. Permanent Marvelite Maximus followers include Copper Age Gold, Dr. Comics 55, Let's Talk Motu, Master of the Universe, is still in the castle ramparts, and Movie Mat Sirois. Keepers of the Favorites Flame include Artificial Twins, Batman Crime Solver, Capital Gain Income, Chris A. Field, Otherverse Games, Chris Dunford, Dave's Comic Heroes blog, Dun Chef, Mad Dragon, Gregory Litchfield, Jared Woods, Madge, Manju Khalida Bourgoin, Marvel Universe Online Project, Max Barba, Nick Scratch, Nick Spence, Ock9J3XDALBSCGC, Rihanna Mike, Samantha Achavaria, Sarah Safani, Scott X, Shanna Banana, Shinji70, William Voyage, and Zyka Audio Laboratory. Retweet frantic ones include Between the Pages blog, CH, Donald Washington, MA, Conversations, John Jennings, The Irredeemable Shag, Relatively Geeky Podcast Network, and Talk Nerdy to Me. Finally, the Merry Marvel Marching Society, Billy Hines, Chris Lydon, Dr. Irving Forbush, Dirk Ashton is finally finishing Kraken Rider Z, who added thanks RSP, Ed Moore, Eugene R. Hendricks, voice actor, home studio, The Hammer Strikes, Random Geeky Stuff, History of Comics on Film, Iowa's Joe Is, JMT Productions, Julia Raoul Super Turbo, Katyusha, Keith G. Baker, King Size Comics, Giant Size Fun Podcast, Max Apocalypse, who added March and Be Merry, or We'll Just Let Blade Deal With Ya, Pavel L., Randy Caldwell, Richard Field, Satin Tights, a Wonder Woman Podcast, Speak Comics, Superbound, Tim Price the Podcrasher, Tony S. Endure and Survive, and Xandro HQ.
The Marvel Superheroes Podcast is in no way affiliated or endorsed by Marvel Entertainment. All characters mentioned and audio clips employed are believed covered under fair use, but remain copyright the respective copyright holders. But of course, the views expressed are wholly owned by the people who spoke them. No infringement is intended.
I went back and reread the Drax stuff a little bit.
Base
You want to add anything to? We can tack it on to the back end of this.
Okay,
that's fine. Go ahead, just comment. So y'all already talked about the Drax?
You were sitting at the table when we did it, dude.
This is the recording from 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember that first when we did it. Very first.
Okay. I don't really set it up nothing. Well, there's really nothing in it. Y'all talked about it.
Saw Guardians of the Galaxy opening night, 10 o'clock showing. Not the first showing. We were one of the first rounds of hordes of nerds in comic book shirts.
We were in there for within the first 3 hours of it being available in the United States of America to regular folk.
Right, and we don't do that very often.
Right. And 3D IMAX too.
3D IMAX, we got some cool posters.
Basically, this entire podcast exists in part in the format that it has because Guardians of the Galaxy was coming out and Fryhole had lent us his Annihilation set. And so it's all kind of full circle on this shit now because this is the first time we've actually been able to do a sequel to any of the movies that we covered previously.
Trying to read some reviews. I had not read any reviews yet, so I'm trying to crunch a couple.
No worries. I read a little bit, but not anything substantial, like no deep reading. Just like scanning the Rotten Tomatoes front page, that kind of shit.
Right, that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I have done, though, is I did listen to... Are you sure I'm not too loud?
You sound good to me, dude.
Okay. What I did do is I listened to or watched a few vloggers, and so I have some sense from their perspective, but not like proper film critics.
Holy shit! Hold on, I got to reread this review that it started out talking about DeSantis, and now talking about. So I got to go back. I was starting to check out, and then it got so crazy. I now have to go back and read it. I apologize. I'm going to be silent here for a second.
Okay,
it's all right.
No worries.
Dude, this fucking review is off the rails. Mm-hmm. Holy shit! Hey, what's the next Marvel movie coming out?
Isn't it the Marvels?
I think it is a Marvel.
Shit, it is.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that, are we?
It's got some Taika Waititi in. I'm telling you, the Taika Waititi Ragnarok is going to leave like a stain on the Marvel Cinematic Universe because that was total. Quantumanium was trying to do that shit. Love and Thunder had his shit all over it, and it looks like it's the Marvels is going to have some of that stuff too in it. Oh, so bad. They should have kissed Gunn's ass and told Waititi YTD to fuck off. And instead, they're going to lose them both. But no.
Well, but one of them feels like Marvel lost the other one. My thing, like, because I hated the trailer to the Marvels. It just looks stupid, and I really am still upset about them using Intergalactic for that. My thing is Secret Invasion is going to be before that, and if Secret Invasion blows me away, I'll go see Marvel. If Secret Invasion does not blow me away, it's waiting for streaming big time, And I may rewatch Captain Marvel before Secret Invasion, but probably not. I'm just going to kind of take that as its own thing and hope for the best.